Grab your Brill cream, milk of magnesia, and your favorite flavor of pudding. It's time to get your geezer on.
I can't even lay claim to the
Oh.
Brill cream. I don't even have hair to put Brill cream into.
Oh.
Hey, Tanny, a quick opinion on something.
Hmm?
Any quick? Oh, you're live.
I'm live.
Oh, okay. Hi, guys.
Netter says hi.
Well, I can give you my opinion if you'd like it. I don't know. Okay. Anyway.
It's always nice when someone asks your opinion, right?
Yes. Good evening, Agent Boomer Troy Pacelli. The screenshots of the wall are hit. I like the creativity for Tears of the Kingdom and Frost being on an insufferable twat. It's really Tears of the Kingdom, not Terrors of the Kingdom, Auto the Dread. Please. Just nobody knows. We were joking about this before the chat. It's like Nintendo hasn't clarified what the actual title is. So people are arguing online about what it means. And we're going to have an article about that tonight. But Matanui, hello. D Pensec, yeah, already read you.
Yep.
And Netters Network, welcome.
Netter's the sweetie. She calls everybody sweetie.
Yes.
Except she calls me love of her life, and I love you.
Love
too.
of my life. Okay.
Yeah.
And Boomer gets a special heart.
And Boomer gets a special heart because it's
Thank you. Deleted scenes, that's a clap. Thank
Hi.
you.
Oh, is that a clap or a wave? Either way
just
works.
Be a wave. I don't know. I'm all effed up tonight. But we'll get through this stream.
All these pictures and no words. I don't know. Hello, the chat.
Horizon Talker, welcome. Yeah, check out his channel. Check out everybody's channel. Check out Deleted Scenes channel. Like I said, he didn't seem so impressed with Barbarian, so now I'm kind of weirded out. I did watch an original horror movie this week. It was on Shudder. It was called Watcher. It's about this young woman. She moves with her husband to Romania, but she can't really speak the language because he got a job promotion, and she's looking outside her apartment window, and then she sees a guy like a few stories up next building staring right at her, and he keeps staring. And then there's a serial killer on the loose, and he's decapitating women. And could it be the guy across the street? It was kind of a good thriller, actually.
Wow, sounds a little Rear Window-ish.
Like Rear Window in reverse in some ways, actually, because it's about you not liking being watched. Like it's the people watcher who's the creeper, and it's just But let's see. Okay, Order Dread. Okay, So what you sipping on?
Diet Dr. Pepper. Yep, I tied it on pretty good Friday night, so I need to take it easy the rest of the weekend.
I have a Coca-Cola here.
Like real Coca-Cola, not even
like
a
real
diet?
Coke. It was on sale finally. Yeah, a regular Coca-Cola.
Wow, the hard stuff, man.
The hard stuff, yeah. Actually, the best stuff is Pepsi Throwback, but you can't find it anywhere. That's where they use the real sugar.
Yeah.
I think you can find that around Passover time. They usually have that on store shelves.
Yeah.
I still have to see the Watcher. Yeah, check it out, Deleted Scenes. I might be curious as to what you think of it. It will be coming out on DVD in a few weeks. Shudder has it right now, but I think the gentleman you had on the other week who likes the physical media, he made a point that he likes to. He was making a point that Shudder is a streaming service he can support because Shudder supports physical media. They put their stuff out in physical media.
They put out original content on their channel, and then they go ahead and release it on DVD too. And hello, Janet.
My goodness. Hello, Janet from another planet.
Good to see you.
We'd sing your theme song, but this channel will get stricken down because of it.
Exactly. Apparently, these I don't know. It's challenging. It's challenging. These people guard their intellectual property so jealously. It's ridiculous. But she says that I am a geek. Okay. Yeah, I think everyone here is a geek.
You're a geek. What's the geekiest thing you're into, Janet? Are you into the Star Trek?
Into the Star? Well,
are you into the science fiction? Of course, if you're an alien, it's
real
just
Star
fiction,
Trek
right?
Or new Star Trek. That's what you got to ask.
Well, let's not go there. Oh no, all of our wonderful things. Actually, I will say this though. Tonight's Good Old Days. I'm going to be fronting it again, but Troy, maybe you know a little bit about this subject. I don't know.
Tell me.
Okay. Well, first you got to do your good old days. And a nerd, yes, sir. Okay. Sir.
Actually,
before we do that,
David's poking at me a little bit. He said, "Oh yeah, you did in reference to me tying one on Friday. Troy Pacelli, your face said it all on Friday night. Yeah, I guess I was the eyelids were drooping and maybe I was slurring a little.
Yeah,
bit.
I was like, hey, it's not even midnight yet, and you're like, yeah, just shut up, Boomer. We're basically at the 2-hour mark. It's like, oh.
Greetings, awesome people and people who identify as awesome people. I think everyone that's here, I identify as an awesome person.
All right. Yeah, Daniel Heron. I will be on with him this Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be doing a rewatch of the great Clint Eastwood movie, Dirty Harry, in The Enforcer. The Enforcer, the third one with Time Daly, who was Tim Daly's. And Big Al may be joining us as well. I know he joined us for the last two, so we may see him again.
What was really pretty cool about those, this was back when you could have a series of films. You didn't have to call it Dirty Harry 1, Dirty Harry 2, Dirty Harry 3,
Back in the 70s, I think that's when you finally started having kind of sequels. Like you had The Godfather Part 2.
Right.
You had, oddly enough, they did a French Connection Part 2, which I haven't seen because I don't know how you do a sequel to The French Connection. But yeah, Clint Eastwood. You know what it is though about those Dirty Harry movies? You could go and see them, but you wouldn't necessarily have to have seen the one that happened prior.
That's true.
They're kind of self-contained. They're like Bond movies, James Bond movies in a way.
I would say in a lot of ways they were like a TV series. You could back then anyway. You could jump into a TV series. You kind of got the gist of it from the opening. And you could enjoy the self-contained story, whether you saw the one before it or after it, right?
Yeah. They need to go back to numbering sequels, but then what would they call? But then they'd have to call the next Star Trek 4, the next Star Trek 4, The Voyage Why. As in The Voyage, why are we making this movie? Because no one's going to see it. I'm sorry.
Well,
that's true. Cynical about the Abrams Star Trek movies.
You do have to now take into account that not only do we have sequels, but we have reboots. So you'd have to have Star Trek 4, but not the previous Star Trek 4, the new Star Trek 4 with the JJ Star Trek 4. I mean, that gets to be a bit of a mouthful,
Dollar Trilogy has a great set of names. I like how the last one doesn't even tie into the other two. I love all three of those. We did the first one on Soundtracks to Birdman, Fistful of Dollars, but I do want to get around to for a few dollars more someday, which is my favorite of that trilogy. But I love them all. They're Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is great as well. I'm not throwing shade at Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's a great movie, but I do
it's
like
great
because
Star Trek: The Next Generation did A Fistful of Datas. That was a thing.
All right, so tonight for Good Old Days, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Oh my goodness.
Yes, that's what happens.
Don't look at a certain folder, Mark's. No, I'm sorry, wait a minute. What? No, wait, okay. There we are.
People are going back and saying, "What are those?"
That's not good. What am I doing? I never know what I'm doing. There we go. The Legend of Zelda. Nintendo, do not strike down this channel, please. I'm not showing game footage. We're just showing a few screenshots. All right. Nintendo is rather notorious for coming after people, but I figure it's usually more about the Mario series more than the Zelda series. But The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Good Old Days, Aged Boomer. That's my name. Okay, so here we have The Legend of Zelda.
Yep.
Ever hear of this game, Troy?
I did.
You're more of a computer gamer. What?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, I was.
So have you ever played it, or did you at least know people who had it?
I knew people who had Legend of Zelda. I don't recall if I ever actually played Legend of Zelda. I did play Ocarina of Time.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to that one. I'm only going to cover 3 games in the series because we'll be here all night if I cover all of them. So we're just going to do 3. I did not have an NES at launch. We were late adopters to the Nintendo Entertainment System. I didn't get one until Christmas of '89. I do remember being in the 6th grade and seeing all the kids, all the other boys in my class, and me and my friend Travis were the only ones that didn't have a Nintendo. And everybody else is talking about Legend of Zelda, Zelda this. And I'm like, well, who's that guy on there? The guy with the shield, the sword. Is that Zelda? That's Link. And the guy, the one kid yelled at me. Okay. That's the Japanese cover for The Legend of Zelda. I actually like both covers. They're not bad.
Yeah.
They're different styles, but they're not bad. This is neat, though. This was usually Nintendo would release their games in black boxes. And this was the first one to come out in a gold box with this as Jeremy Parrish. If you want a good game historian for old Nintendo games, Jeremy Parrish. He has a good channel on YouTube. But he called this heraldic imagery on the shield. And inside that square there, if you see it, that was clear. That was the actual cartridge on the inside. It was painted gold. Not the usual gray cartridge. You got a gold cartridge with this.
Nice.
Here is the Legend of Zelda, the original NES game. Like I said, I was not real big on this. I knew people who had it. I did eventually get it later on. I've of course played it since then. Here's all the story you need. Legend of Zelda. Many years ago, Prince Darkness Ganon one of the Triforce with power. Princess Zelda had one of the Triforce with wisdom. She divided into 8 units to hide it from Ganon before she was captured. Go find the 8 units, Link, to save her. Obviously, this is someone over in Japan trying to translate the story into English from Japanese. It's a little spotty. If you got this on the Game Boy Advance when they re-released these old NES cartridges on the Game Boy Advance, you actually get a more properly translated version of this little story. But yeah, okay. So you have the evil Ganon.
Well, you get the gist of it. That's what's important.
Yeah. But there you go. There's another picture of Link. There's a fairy. Okay, and this was a big deal at the time, and I didn't realize it. Now we had PCs. Did you have a Commodore 64?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, and I had an Atari computer, so they were still considered 8-bit computers at the time, and they could do things that your Atari 2600 console couldn't do. But most people didn't have. A lot of people in the country didn't have computers, so this might have been a lot of people's first introduction to what we might call a role-playing game. And even though what Zelda does is it kind of marries the action game with the role-playing game, because instead of it being you're running into random encounters and fighting creatures, in turn-based battles and stuff like that, like an Ultima, or later on the NES with something like Dragon Quest. You actually would fight them real time, but you would also gain items. You'd had an inventory. You could get better swords, better shields. You'd build up your character that way by finding better items, finding more heart containers, so you have more hit points. And you could talk to people in these little caves here sometimes. Boy, this is really expensive. You could buy items. I assume that's a leg of roast that you can buy to replenish your health with. And I know right now, and I'll be blunt, when we got the NES in 89, when I saw this game, I thought these graphics were even basic for 89. I was not that impressed with them. I didn't buy this game until a while later, but I'm not trying to throw shade at this game. It's still a brilliant first outing.
Yeah, I got to say that for me, looking at that, remember, I'm coming from, the Atari 2600 playing Adventure.
Oh, so yeah. And Adventure in many ways is like a precursor to this
yeah,
game.
This is a similar kind of thought process to the graphics.
Yeah.
But you're going, I'm not here for the graphics. I'm here for the representation of it, right? It evokes the story, and I'm able to manage the fights and so forth. And in my mind, a dragon looks like a dragon, right? Otherwise, it's just represented by pixels on a screen.
You have to understand that when you're a kid and you're playing these games, your imagination would kind of take over. Like, right. I'm not hearing necessarily the chiptune music. I'm hearing an orchestra, or I'm hearing singing. Right. You may see these statues coming to life, and you're seeing them come to life in real time. And of course, these things would later be realized as graphics and gaming got more advanced. But your mind would fill in the blanks. That's what I think a lot of kids don't understand.
Well, and tell me if you didn't have this reaction when something would happen, and you're reading the dialogue, and then you realize, I'm in trouble. Your heart would start to beat, and you'd be like, oh no, oh no, and then you'd go into the combat or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, well, Zelda was notorious because Zelda had, when you got down to one hit point, it would start beeping like, like it would be like a beep, and it'd be like, if I get hit again, I'm died, and then it would be, and the Link spins around, he disintegrates like Pac-Man did in the old game. It was neat, and just, I don't know, it had dungeons. You go in the dungeons. Look, you're fighting some skeletal warriors. And they actually have... Now I look at this and I actually find these graphics quite charming. They're very basic, but they have that basic 8-bit style. There's a dragon. There's your dragon.
Yep.
But I mean,
I got to say, it's a better dragon than the ones we got in Adventure on Atari 2600.
Exactly. I mean, this was
progress. Sure.
And this, you have to understand too that when this game came out, this was advanced technology. We don't see it now because, of course, the games that came out after, Nintendo kept pushing the envelope, but they could do stuff with the chips inside the cartridges. Because I think the NES at its base level couldn't really do even the side scrolling, like the auto scrolling in the games. I think everything would be static screens with the base hardware, but then they come up with these chips for the cartridges, and they'd make it better. And this was a big deal when it came out. Nintendo they promoted this big time. They had a Legend of Zelda Super Mario Brothers breakfast cereal you could buy. There was a cartoon series.
Back up a second. Think about what you were just saying. You were talking about because of the limitations, you could only have a single screen, right? And then you'd leave the screen and another screen would come up. It was a while before you could get to side scrollers where the screen would just continue.
Scroll with you.
How is that different? Think about it. It's kind of like today where you when you're playing a game, you're in an environment, and either you have open world where you can go and go and go, and things would render as you move, or you literally would have a loading screen where you're waiting for the next area of the game to load up.
Yeah, well, that's how it was in the old days. If Resident Evil was famous for this, it would load up these rooms for you. Yeah,
the more things change, the more they stay the same. It seems.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And here we go. To be fair, I say auto scrolling, but these screens didn't scroll. I mean, you would go from room to room, and it would kind of scroll for you. But these are all static screens, including
you can get away with that in a situation like this because it's kind of like being in a cat. You only see the room you're in anyway, and that's fine. You don't know what you're getting into till you're in the next room.
Like, look up here. Look at up here where it says under level 9. That's a map of the dungeon. That was actually a very big deal that this game had a map in it, even though it was a very basic map. Okay. I don't know where some of these screenshots came from. Some of these don't have some of them are zoomed in. But this is the one I got, though, for the Super Nintendo. Now, I was not really big into Legend of Zelda on NES, but frankly, I didn't like that cartoon because it was like moonlighting, but with Link and Zelda. Like, there's always like that. Like, they're always squabbling, but they really have the hots for each other. It was just, they played it on Fridays. They would play Super Mario Brothers cartoons during the week, and then Friday you'd get a Zelda cartoon. But I don't know. I that kind of threw me off. But here's the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. This was for the Super Nintendo. And I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember Dungeon Rooms? This was a thing that the people that make Warhammer put out.
I don't think so.
Okay, this was like an aid for your role-playing game, and if you wanted to, you could buy Dungeon Rooms, and it came with these cool little tiles that look like these flat rooms. You see this?
I have seen these before. I didn't know what they were. It is kind of cool.
Yeah, and they were neat. And my brother had a box of them. I thought they were rather cool. And you could if you were playing in a real-time RPG but wanted some representation for your players, you could lay out these flat tiles, and they looked really neat. Like, that looks like a crypt, that looks like a barracks right there to the left. They were really neat. So when I saw previews of the new Legend of Zelda game for the Super Nintendo, I was like, wow, this reminds me of those Dungeon Rooms.
Sure.
Because the graphics have now gotten significantly better now from the NES that we were just looking at a little while ago. See, you have lighting, you have, you can make out that those, the brick walls and everything, the pattern on the floor. There's Link fighting some knight with a mace. Okay, it's pretty neat. It's funny. This game starts out; those are real-time weather effects. The Super Nintendo games could do weather effects, so they could actually have it raining on the screen, and it would be like, and you could see thunder flashing overhead. And that was something you couldn't get on the NES. And it starts out in a dark and stormy night, and Link is woken up from his sleep. Apparently, Princess Zelda's been captured. You have to start out the game having to rescue the princess at the very first thing. This game takes place 100 years before the original Legend of Zelda as well. In fact, you'll notice with Zelda games, they tend to keep going back in time until recently. So here you go. You make it out of the castle with her alive, and you hand her over to the priest who's going to keep her safe. And of course, that's a drawn image from the game. This was an interesting game because at some point in the game, you actually go to another world, which is a dark world, which is where the evil Ganon resides, and it's like an inverted. It's like a dark version of the regular Hyrule world. So it's like same map, but all the locations are different because it's like you know what it is. You know what it's like. It's like the Upside Down.
I was just thinking that. It's
yeah.
like the Upside Down. Right?
It's like the Upside Down. In fact, when Link first comes over, he looks like a rabbit because I guess you turn into your essence in the dark world. Ganon, of course, turns into some kind of horrible looking pig or boar. You know, when he got transferred over here. But it's funny. Here's an artist's conception of what the dungeon is like. So here you have a 3D version of what the dungeon would look like. And this is what it looks like in the game. But as you can see, it has more of a 3D feel to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like Link can actually jump between levels. Like he could climb these stairs that there was opening. He could jump down and jump down. It had it had more like a diorama effect to it. I'll say that. In fact, it's interesting. They did bring out a 2D Zelda game on the 3DS, and it kind of had that feel to it because it looked like 3D. Here's another rendition of what a dungeon might look like in 3D. But here you go. Here it is in the game.
That's pretty cool.
And here's some bosses you have to fight. This was pretty state of the art. This is tied for my favorite Super Nintendo game, right up there with Yoshi's Island, which is the game with Baby Mario in it, where he whines every time you get hit. You know, he cries and stuff. But and people hate Yoshi's Island because of the crying baby in it when you get hit. But I don't. It's still a brilliant game. But I'm not talking about Yoshi's Island. I'm talking about Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Great classic action RPG, almost perfect. I have no complaints. I remember reading an EGM one time. They said playing Link to the Past is equivalent to a religious experience. I guess if you're a gamer, this is like your. It was cool playing this through and finishing it. It had a great ending too. But then we go on, and we're going to talk about one more, and this is the Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. Yeah. Do you remember this game at all? I think
this
you played
one.
This
I do.
game, right?
Yeah, I did play this at a friend's house a couple times. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I had been starved for a new Zelda game. Like after Link to the Past came out, I'm like, give me more, please. I want another one like this. And I even bought they re-released the original Zelda for the NES. I rebought that re-release just so I'd have another Zelda game to play. And I played other games that were kind of like it, like action RPGs in the same style, but there's nothing quite like a Zelda game. And they released one for the Game Boy, The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. So that was good, but it was still on your portable game system. I wanted something for a console. We didn't get this, I think, until 98. Yeah, because Nintendo 64 came out in 96. 97 was GoldenEye, and 98 was Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. This was the big holiday game of that year, for the Christmas season. And look at that, huh? Now, granted, this is a bit more polished up than how it might have looked, but now you have Link in 3D. You were able to traverse it. I say 3D, it's still on your 2D TV, but you get my drift. You can move in any direction you want to. And look at the depth of field here. I mean, I think it would still blur, but it was actually pretty good for the time. Like, you know how you were saying earlier about how, you have to go through a thing and then another screen loads up, and you still sort of got that here too. But on the field, it was pretty impressive for the time. You could see a lot more in front of you than most other games of that era. The N64 was notorious for having what was called fog in games.
Sure.
Like I'm playing Turok Dinosaur Hunter, and there's a lot of fog in the distance. That's why you can't see notes, because the game hasn't written where you're going yet. That's why the fog's there, But
you don't render something that's in the distance that you can't really play in anyway.
Yeah. But here we go. Link, you get a horse in this. It's funny. I remember reading an article, and in an interview, the guy that made all of these games, his name is Shigeru Miyamoto. He was famous for creating Donkey Kong and the Super Mario Brothers games, but he also made the Legend of Zelda series. And he's kind of like the Walt Disney of video games in a lot of respects. Yeah. And he made this game, and he said in an interview that he was going to have this new Zelda game was going to have Link. Link would have a vehicle in it. And I'm like, what do you mean by vehicle? And I'm thinking, it's a fantasy game. Is he going to have a boat? Nope, he has a horse. See?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that there's a translational thing going there, because I kind of get what he's saying. I guess from a certain point of view, a horse is like a vehicle. It's a conveyance.
Exactly. And of course, this game is called the Ocarina of Time. One of the big things, instead of you going from a light world to a dark world, you go from the present into the future, because you start out as young Link, and then you go to the Temple of Time because you have to retrieve the Master Sword to kill the evil Ganon. But the sages there say you're too young. You're not going to be able to wield the sword till you're an adult. So they freeze you there, and then you wake up and now you're an adult, and you walk out, and it's like 10 years later, and the world's been conquered and taken over by the villain. You know. So you actually have to go back and forth in time to solve puzzles and stuff. Like I think like to set things right, you have to go into the past and fix things for the future and stuff. It's really out there. There's a poster of the game though. See,
I love that. That's great. Yeah,
it's a neat little poster. So you have the old young Link and the old Link there because you go between both. And Zelda is still going strong. This is a screenshot from the latest Zelda game that was announced on this past week on Nintendo's podcast. But
that's an actual screenshot from the gameplay?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, they've gotten a lot more advanced over time. They use what's known as cell shading for this game, and they've toyed with that before, like Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, which was one of the later Zelda games. Between that, they had more of a cartoonish look, which people got very angry about. They said you made Link into a cartoon character because he almost looked like a Disney or Looney Tunes character in those games,
sure,
right?
Sure.
But I think now they found kind of a balance. He still looks animated, but less like a cartoon character. But again, a lot of people like Toon Link. I had no issue with it. But oh yeah, they created a nifty targeting system for Ocarina of Time being the first 3D Zelda. That targeting system was patented by Nintendo. If you wanted to use that targeting system, you had to go with them, and usually nobody would, obviously, unless they were making an exclusive game for the N64. But let's see. I'd like to get one someday in the magical future when I have time again. I finish every Fire Emblem game up to the Wii titles, and I want to play the Switch one. I have the Switch one. I haven't had time to play it. I mean, I've been so busy lately, but I did get a Switch, and I loved what I played of the Breath of the Wild that's been on it. It's a very different game, but yeah, the latest game is Zelda Engine is straight fire. Very impressive stuff. Nintendo's always innovating, and I guess I say good old days because, of course, they were the good old days of those old Zelda games. But
yeah,
we still have good Zelda games coming out. I think Reggie Fils-Aimé was interviewed. They asked him one time about he was the president of Nintendo of America at the time. They asked him, "Is Nintendo going to get political in their games or stuff like this?" And he said, "It's not really our place. We make games for everybody." Like I think he said something to that effect. He said, it's not really, we're about having fun. We're not about, if other people want to do that, that's fine. But we here at Nintendo, we try to make things for everybody.
That's refreshing.
Okay. All right. But anyway, was that informative to you at all, Troy? I don't know.
It was.
You didn't get much of a chance to talk, I guess. But
it's also good to hear somebody who was passionate about it, share their joy. I guess that's really what, the good old days is all about here.
It's weird because there was a time in my life I've never considered myself a fanboy of anything, but I was closest when it came to Nintendo. For a while, there was a time in my life where I thought they could do no wrong. And I think they faltered a bit. I think they've come back from that, though. They're still going strong. And, I get why they're straight up a lot of Nintendo fans out there. And I still am one myself. But when I was younger, I was more obsessed with it, if you know what I mean. Like I would anticipate every summer when they would reveal what the next big game was, whether it was a Metroid game or a new Zelda game or whatnot. But Metroid Prime used a variation of Z targeting, if I recall correcting. I love that series as well. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll do something on Metroid. That's Nintendo science fiction theme series. But okay, so we have news to talk about, don't we?
Yes, we absolutely do. I guess that's really why we come here, right?
Anyway, I brought up Zelda because I figured maybe Troy doesn't know as much about it. We were having an article about it later on tonight, so I figured I would maybe prime him. Of course, you did play Ocarina of Time, so that's one of the big ones. That's in some ways that's some people's favorite Zelda game.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like I played it all the way through or anything, or I just got into some of the gameplay and I have a basic idea of the the gameplay and the basic story.
Okay. So here we have fan baiting playbook revealed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and read off the definition as you found it online. This was through Twitter, right? We want to give credit to who made up this definition. I think it's in the article as well, but actually I have the Twitter link right here. So it is
Dr. someone or other. Dr.
Hold on. I'll bring it up.
Siren.
I'll bring it up on the Twitter. I might as well just follow. Because Troy's been telling me to get on the Twitter.
We do always try to list our sources, so that you can go check them out yourself. But this particular one, very interestingly, we are quoting a Twitter thread, an article written on Twitter by a Dr. Thala Siren, who's doing a commentary on this concept of fan baiting. I find this very interesting because this is a phenomenon that we're all very acutely aware of. It's kind of nice to know that, people in the academic community are starting to address it.
Fan baiting. This is the definition according to this. Fan baiting is a form of marketing used by producers, film studios, and actors with the intent of exciting artificial controversy, garnering publicity, and explaining away the negative reviews of new and often highly anticipated productions. Fan baiting emerged as a marketing strategy in 2017 after fans of the beloved franchises such as Ghostbusters and Star Wars objected to what they saw as poor writing choices, sloppy scripts, and cheap alterations to plot lines and characters for the sake of shock value. Alongside these critics, there were a small group of bigoted but vociferous commentators who objected to the inclusion of black and female actors in roles traditionally held by white male actors. Some of these individuals began publicly harassing actors. Bigots have always attacked diversity on screen, but in a highly polarized political climate, instances of harassment garnered disproportionately massive media coverage, which provided production studios with both free publicity and new defense against actual critics. Studios seized the opportunity to discredit criticism of poor writing and acting, insinuating that these two were motivated by bigotry. What used to be accepted as standard critiques were increasingly dismissed as part of the ignorant commentary of a quote-unquote toxic fandom. Soon it became standard practice before release to issue announcements specifying diverse casting choices coupled with preemptive declarations of solidarity with the cast whom they now counted on to receive disparaging and harassing comments. Actors who are women or BIPOC,
people of color,
biracial individuals, people of color, I think that's what it means, became props of or in shields for craven corporate laziness and opportunism. The studios save money both by avoiding expensive veteran writers as well as by offloading publicity to news outlets and social media covering the artificial controversy. Fan baiting works. It brings in a new sympathetic audience whose endorsement is more about taking a public stance against prejudice than any real interest in the art. Fan baiting also permits studios to cultivate public skepticism over the legitimacy of poor reviews. Fan baiting also compels reviewers to temper their criticism for fear of becoming associated with toxic fandom and losing their professional credibility, resulting in telling discrepancies between critic and audience review scores. The true nature of fan baiting is never so clear as when script is well crafted and audience reviews are accordingly positive, exposing the announcements, declaration of solidarity, and grooming of skepticism for what they really are: cynical corporate marketing tactics. All right. So, what do we think of this? Is this a theory that's probably going around now?
Well, I guess you could call it that. I mean, when an academic is digging into it, I guess that's what you would call it. But let's face it, it's a phenomenon that we've been seeing real time, through direct observation. You can call it a theory, but we kind of see the reality of it.
This did start. Okay, now the author did bring up Ghostbusters 2016. This was not the Ghostbusters 2016. That whole controversy many think that spun out from. Do you remember the movie The Audition with Seth Rogen and the
I
other guy,
don't think so.
James
No.
Franco? It was going to be it was supposed to be released in theaters. It was about two guys. They're going to go over to interview Kim, the leader of North Korea. And then the government says you can go assassinate him for us because you're going to be in the interview, and because you're going to be interviewing. You can do the world a favor. And just assassinate
okay.
this guy.
I did hear about that. Yeah.
Sony gets hacked. The script gets leaked, and then North Korea starts threatening, or they get very angry about this movie coming out. So it's a big disaster. Sony doesn't then get chickens out. Doesn't want to release in theaters. It goes straight to Netflix. But on Netflix, it does very well. I guess as a streaming exclusive, it did very well. A lot of people watched it on Netflix, and people theorized, well, this had negative press associated with it, and it did very well. And I think that got in the playbook of, let's see. In this case, I guess it was the North Koreans that were offended by the movie, and there was a theory going around that let's see if we can offend the old Ghostbusters fans with this new Ghostbusters movie, and that will make it do well. Yeah. This was a theory going around. I don't know if this is what they really discussed behind the scenes, but it seemed kind of odd. Both Sony movies, both comedies, and they both seem to follow that same playbook.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And there have been a couple of other channels that have taken a look at this and done a breakdown. And honestly, a couple of good points that I've seen. This article, this doctor is saying, well, it works. Well, it does work, but it only works in a certain way. It's kind of like, it works in the short term, but if you keep trying to ride it, it ends up working against you, right? So let's take, for example, the one that's right in front of us all right now, the race swapping on The Little Mermaid, right? Anyone brings up anything about this before the movie comes out,
right?
And it's just racist. We're talking about a fantasy character. It doesn't have to be white, doesn't have to be black. Get over it. Blah blah blah. You're racist if you're against it. Once it comes out, when you continue to try and ride that, and people are saying, "Look, this is not as good as the classic. The music isn't as good. It's not." The special effects, whatever, they start talking about this kind of stuff. You can say racist all you want, but when people aren't even talking anymore about the casting of the character, it starts to work against you. And people that are otherwise completely objective start to look and say, wow, you're still on the race thing, and you're not even addressing these fairly legitimate things they're talking about. What are you all about?
It's interesting because I think of it's almost like, if I'm going by the reverse of what you're saying, is if people start saying, don't you dare say anything against this, then if you actually have legitimate criticism for other reasons besides the casting, they'll just say, oh, you're just saying that because you don't like the main actress we cast in the lead,
right? And again, I think that goes back to the very basic concept of criticism, right? You can't accept criticism, so you blame the critic. And most people see through that. And they go, yeah, I may not necessarily have the same opinion as this critic, but these are fair points, and you're not addressing them. You're just lashing out with ad hominems. And, this is not enough to defend art anymore. You can't just stand on, the isms and the phobes and the critics are all evil anymore. You need to start, actually, you shouldn't even have to defend your art. Let your art stand for itself. If it's good enough, it's going to silence the critics.
I am thinking that they are trying to cut corners on hiring the best writers, on hiring the best directors, because I think that I know this is caught up in finances somehow. I know the woke stuff's part of it, but I'm just wondering if this is caught up in finances. If these productions are just costing so much, they have to figure out ways to save money. I mean, think about even Jon Favreau, who got us. They said he got a sweet deal for The Mandalorian, but he doesn't get any residuals from Baby Yoda. He just
yeah.
Actually, and the movie was called The Interview. I said The Audition. Yes, Audition is a Japanese horror movie. My brain's thought Interview, and out my mouth came Audition. I don't know what to tell you, but let me see. Apparently, although YouTube won't show the dislike count of Little Mermaid, if you have a Google Chrome extension, you can see the dislikes are over 1 million. I heard about that, and like I say, I don't know the reasons for that. I know that this last Pinocchio movie they made is considered is dreadful. We talked about it last week. If you check out Pop's channel, Pop's on Pop Culture, he actually did a review of it.
So he's
mhm.
absolutely right. I just went to it. It's showing 1 million likes and 2.6 million dislikes.
Why call it fan baiting? Oh, go ahead.
2.6 million plus. Okay, so this is interesting. If you hit, so I just came and looked at the page for the official trailer for Little Mermaid. 1 million likes, 2.6 million dislikes. I go to click on the dislike, and the dislike button fills up that shows that you clicked on it, and it takes away the number. I can't see the number anymore.
Interesting.
I would have to remove my dislike to see how many dislikes there are. That's kind of weird, but okay. But right, as Auditor Dread said, I have the Google extension that allows me to still see the dislike number.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to read a bit from this article as well. I think this was a
commentary on the one you just read. Yeah,
a commentary on what I just read. I want to read from it though. The online movie community has been quivering with excitement over the last few days over something referred to as "quote unquote" fan baiting, as our outposters are a relentlessly cynical bunch with many miles in their movie-going clocks from nearly 30 years of internet movie fandom. Many of you had called this out already in Disquist for quite a while. So obviously other people have been noticing this trend as well. So what is fan baiting? Well, the online flap started when a Twitter commenter going by the handle of Dr. Thalasiren started a thread. Thalasiren is actually the name of a large pinnip that Luke milks in The Last Jedi. Dr. Thalasiren bio states that they are a cultural critic with a PhD, according to the thread. Fan baiting is a form of marketing used by producers, film studios, and actors with the intent of exciting artificial controversy, garnering publicity, and explaining away the negative reviews of a new and awfully highly anticipated production. Sounds unbelievably familiar, right? Way back before even Ghostbusters 2016 The Force Awakens, many outposters in their former communities were calling this out, saying that controversy seemed whipped up, almost confected around certain movies. Outposters were pointing out loudly that they had no issue with the genitalia of the Ghostbusters or the color of Finn's skin. What they objected to was lazy writing, retreads, a total lack of jokes in comedies, gender and race swapping that made no narrative sense, a failure to respect source material, and just generally poor quality. However, according to the narrative being pushed back by the studios, you were just a misogynist, a racist, an all-around villain, and that's why you didn't like the product. Again, against the backdrop of the culture wars, the voices of a very small number of wrong-uns in any community are elevated by those watching. This was the case in which some people who really did have issues with skin tone or gender who were suddenly held up as representatives of the entire online communities. This happened in a certain other movement that began with a gate. You would have bad actors harassing people online, and maybe these were members of that movement. Maybe they weren't. Maybe it was one member just with a lot of different accounts. Because when you're anonymous online, you can be anybody. You could be one person doing 100 things at once. You could be anonymous trolls just doing it for kicks. You don't know. You could even be people on the side pretending to be offended by this stuff. And here's where the studio pulled their greatest trick. They created and then blamed toxic fandom. So far, so familiar in the Twitter thread. Dr. Thauster then goes on to detail what you all know happens next. And actors and women biracial people of color became props and shields for craven corporate laziness and opportunism. Studios saved money both by avoiding expensive veteran writers as well as by offloading publicity to news outlets and social media covering artificial controversy. And I've been wondering too, I've been thinking about this lately, how some of these actors are being used as shields a lot. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think the people behind these companies aren't that sick that they'd be letting their actors take the punches for them so that they can disavow all criticism. But I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I think that it has always been that way. That they put the talent out there as the face, and they back them when they feel they need to back them, but they let them take the black eyes, when they need to as well. Yeah, no, these companies, they use their talent, like props.
Let me see. Captain Marvel, Ghostbusters, Last Jedi, Dark Fate, Batwoman, Obi-Wan, Rings of Power, The Cancel, Batgirl, etc., etc. They all claim that the trolls were the reasons for their failures. It's interesting to bring up the last Terminator movie. I've actually been very generous to Mackenzie Davis on that movie. I don't think that she was necessarily the problem with that movie. I think it was Arnold and Linda Hamilton coming back and just phoning it in. Plus, the writing was terrible too. But I think
let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as Ghostbusters 2016. It was taking an established franchise and completely subverting it, and basically telling the fans, "We hate you. We hate what you love. We're gonna undo it, and we're gonna do the opposite." That's what it was.
Fan baiting as a deliberate tactic. This is now said to be deliberate marketing tactic being deployed by publicity and PR professionals around these productions, stirring up conflict and hatred just to excuse substandard workmanship while trying to sell a piece of entertainment. It's brilliantly despicable. It's only a short hop, skip, and jump. Suddenly you are in Elliot Carver and Tomorrow Never Dies territory. That's a James Bond movie from the Pierce Brosnan era. We watched it on Birdman the other week. It's interesting because I think he's starting to start a war between the United Kingdom and China by making both sides feel like they've been attacked. But he's the one who's really stirring up the pot to sell newspapers. That's basically the plot of the movie. But it creates false narratives and then shapes them to the advantage of the studio. It alienates core fan bases while bringing in a Novu woke Volvians who virtue signal rather than ask questions about quality, thus meaning the value of art is undermined by the value of the signal, the message. Yeah, it's kind of like when Shang-Chi was coming out and everybody was screaming how it was a great... all the critics were saying, "Oh, this is wonderful for diversity and representation in movies." And I'm thinking, that's fine. Is the movie any good?
Right.
That's what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah, because the fact is, most people don't go see it for the cultural diversity. They're going to see a movie. They're going to see a good movie. They want to be entertained. If you don't deliver, they're not going to respond very well to it.
And then finally, you have the effect. What is effectively done here is monetize racism, sexism, and any other kind of ism you can think of to your own advantage. So, if I'm reading this analysis properly, it's these companies are now making money off of perceived sexism, racism, and stuff by the quote unquote toxic fandom.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do we do going forward?
Well, I think we do exactly what we have just done. We comment on it. We make sure that our audience is aware of it, that our audience shares this information with other people so that you aren't being, duped, and thinking, "Oh, I'm a bad person because I don't like the race swapping," Just be aware of it and make other people aware of it.
Yeah. Agreed, Mackenzie Davis wasn't the issue. It's cynicism on the account of the studio. Terminator should have stopped after 2. Yeah, probably. I did like Sarah Connor Chronicles, the series they did, but
that was
incredible.
It would have been nice if we'd have gotten resolution on that.
Yeah, I consider that the true Terminator 3. Though I don't hate Terminator 3. I think at least on the base level, it's a competent action movie. I had some issues with it, but and then it just kind of goes downhill after that. But something is fundamentally broken, and it has been broken deliberately by studios peddling shit while screaming at you that you are a monster if you don't like the shit that they're peddling. We are not the ones in the online community who have grown wise. We're not the only ones in the online community that have grown wise to this. Not the usual suspects. They're too far gone. However, in corners of the movie web, as cynical as we are, there have been rumblings for a while. Hollywood, we see you. And yeah, I'm gonna post some links to some other Doomcock. Was this the video we talked about?
Yep.
Disney making patchwork series and movies. So it's by
Yeah.
filming a bunch of scenes and then just seeing what makes the most sense. Because then they have some scene from the recent Obi-Wan series where Reva gets killed by Darth Vader. Then it
Right.
doesn't end up getting used because they're still trying to figure out what they're doing.
And they were
even in
talking
post.
about, where does the budget for She-Hulk go when you look at the special effects and you're like, this is absolute shit. Well, what they're actually doing is for every one episode, they're actually filming like 3 or 4 episodes. And then they're choosing which one they want to go with. It is a horribly stupid business model. It is wasteful. It is ridiculous. It's right up there with what we were talking about when Kathleen Kennedy does a whole movie and then it gets scrapped and completely refilmed.
They killed John Connor in the first few minutes. Dark Fate was never going to go over well. You didn't see Dark Fate, did you?
I did not. I know enough about it that I know I would not have enjoyed it.
We go from John Connor being the villain in Genesis, which I always call it Genesis, even though it's part of the prior movie. They turn him into the villain. They make him like some part Terminator thing, and now I guess Sarah Connor has to stop her own son. And then in this one, they just kill him off in the beginning. They had furlong. They've turned on John Connor. If you turn on John Connor in Terminator, you basically turned on the whole point of the series to begin with.
Well, it's
right?
no different from
this is just
what they did to Obi-Wan Kenobi, what they did to Luke Skywalker, what they've done to, all the heroes. The heroes are evil. Those poor bad guys are the oppressed ones, right? Defund the police, and, what kind of a world do you want? This is not the kind of entertainment that people are seeking these days.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking.
We want to be inspired as well as entertained.
Here's what even kills me about the Disney sequel trilogy. We were all open to having new heroes.
Right.
Showing up. I mean, we were not expecting Luke or Han to be the main heroes of the sequel trilogy. We were figuring it'd be a new generation, and okay, Finn. We'll give Finn a chance, and Poe and all them. I feel like I hate bringing up Star Wars because at this point, or hate bringing up the sequel trilogy at this point, but my whole issue with that is it felt like the movie spent more time trying to tear down the old heroes than building the new ones up. That's basically how I felt about that whole trilogy. There's a scene in Rise of Skywalker where Rey goes, "Oh, none of you know who I am or what I'm like," or something. He says, "Yeah, because the writers didn't bother developing your character up and over the first 2 movies."
Yeah.
This is just. But here's the thing,
Kitty. You can always catch the rewatch to catch.
We haven't talked about Fire Emblem yet, though, so you're fine. But yeah, we just talked Zelda. I just did a good old days on Zelda, but I don't know. I feel like I know I've been doing this channel for about 2 years now, probably a little over 2 years now, and I know you've been on YouTube longer. And how have you felt in all this time? Like, are we have they been doing this all the time, or have they just gotten worse since we started doing this stuff, this commentary stuff?
I think it's been going on a lot longer than we've been noticing it, because when we look back in retrospect, we can kind of see this kind of stuff. I mean, I've been talking about it, not just in entertainment, in culture and so forth. I look back and some of the things that are very acutely in the forefront these days, I see the seeds of back in the 70s. These things don't happen overnight. This didn't happen just all of a sudden 3 years ago with, the pandemic and lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. This whole cultural revolution started gearing up back in the late 60s, early 70s, You know, yeah, I won't get too far down the political rabbit hole, but it has been this it's a psyop is what it really is. It is trying to change, it is destroy a mentality, destroy a way of life, destroy a nation by undermining the very tenets of the belief systems of the people that have kept it strong. Destroy the men, destroy the heroes, destroy the religion, destroy all the honor and character in favor of, you know, something less than.
It feels like some kind of tactics that were left over from the old Cold War, but they just kept going even
it
after
absolutely
the
is.
Soviet Union fell.
And
yeah.
it goes back before that too. You know, I was just having a talk with someone about World War II, specifically in terms of, you know, how people are constantly bringing up, you know, the guy with the bad mustache took away people's guns before, you know, the Holocaust happened. That's true, but it happened over a very long period of time. It didn't happen overnight. You know, it started out with you had to have a permit. Then you had to justify why you had to have it. Then only people that work for the government could have it. And then only friends of the Fuhrer could have it. And guess what? You're not. And we're going to round you up now.
Kind of deliberate. Now you're starting to sound like Gina Carano. I guess that's a compliment, though, isn't it?
At this point, you know, look, I said, you know, it's gotten to the point where, you know, what you called a conspiracy theory 2 years ago is very clear and obviously happening now. So what was it? You know, who was the idiot? You know, me for pointing it out or you for ignoring it until it was too late? Obviously, I don't mean you personally, Boomer.
No, you're just saying. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to even think this stuff is really going on, but there's something just completely off about all of this. For the stars, I have no idea why Disney keeps doing these remake movies of the classic fairy tales. I don't know.
Because they don't have the talent to create anything new anymore. And you can see it when they don't even have the talent to recreate what already exists. We literally are taking something that was a classic and perfect, turning it into live action and making it shit, boring, stupid, don't want to see it. How do you do that? It takes a special kind of stupid to pull that off. Real quick, let's say hi to Mr. Matchstick, who stopped in to say yo.
Welcome.
And I definitely want to say that Crazy Kitty says that she hasn't watched. I haven't watched any Terminator movie since the second one. You know what? You're probably better off for it.
You're probably better off. I didn't hate part 3. I know some people don't like it, but you don't need to watch it. It's especially since it didn't really go anywhere from part 3. But here's what it was. Yeah. I remember at the time thinking part 3 was, it's okay. It's not as good as the first 2. And then I watched it again in comparison to everything that came out after, and it was so much better than even an average Hollywood blockbuster that summer. And even though at the time I remember thinking it's not that great, compared to a lot of what we got now, just in general with movies, it was still better, more competely made, and I was shocked.
The thing about
this just shows how far we've come.
The thing about 3 is I knew it was going on the downside of the hill. We were beginning our descent not because it was bad, but because there were little bits of lore that they got wrong. The timelines were off, little details. Yeah. And if you're going to do something like that with something like the Terminator, there's got to be a reason for it. You've got to have a good, solid explanation for it.
I know in 3...
gloss over it, it's bad.
They explained that the timeline got postponed, but it still happens. That's what the Terminator comes back to tell them. I don't know. And then you have Salvation. That's another thing, which I agree. good premise but bad execution. Because I actually like the idea of them doing a trilogy set when John Connor is actually reading the Revolution Against the Machines. I thought, oh, tell his story in the future. And they had Christian Bale cast. I thought it would be
What
good
we
to use it
really
going off the
needed
Dark Knight.
from
But
that,
yeah,
what we hoped for, what we needed to see from that was the kind of thing that you see with the newer Planet of the Apes films, you know, where you've got these really good stories that take place in between, you know, elements of the old thing, right? Leading up to, you know, that future storyline that you know is coming, right?
yeah.
So we should have seen a trilogy that gave us the prequel that we knew happened after you know, Terminator 2 or 3 or whatever, that leads up to the beginning of Terminator 1, right? Where we see him sending his father back in time to stop the Terminator from killing his mother. That would have been a good, elegant loop. But you need these freaking egomaniacs to come in and subvert expectations and make it their own and all this kind of shit. And it's like, okay, fine, you know.
See,
I mean, you
if we
could
were
take a
just
Stradivarius and saw off the neck and put in a metal pipe and, you know, make it your own. That doesn't make it better.
it's weird. It's either fan baiting or it's fan and if it's not fan baiting, then the critics complain saying it's fan service. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, like that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I keep bringing that up every time someone says something about fan service. Why is that a bad thing? Who are you making this for if not for the fans? Who are you serving if not the fans? If you use fan service as a pejorative, you're in the wrong business.
I posted a link here. I might do that in the description later on, but that's a link to the Midnight's Edge article. Essay on video essay on fan baiting. Midnight's Edge also, they had a video on recently with Chris Gore explaining the.
Yeah.
I know you didn't want to touch too much on this, but we'll talk about it a little bit. The Brie
Sure.
Larson situation that happened.
Yeah.
She was in the news. Basically, in fact, hold on. Maybe I should do David Jaffe first, and then I'll do. I don't know if I did anything on the actual Brie Larson thing, but I guess it ties into both. So, okay. Okay, so yeah, this was. I'll read a bit from this article, then I'll do the David Jaffe thing. So Brie Larson acknowledges Captain Marvel hate backlash. Some of you may have seen this video going online. Now, I'm not. I mean, I think I've said my piece on Brie enough in the past. I don't know if I want to keep beating that dead horse. But yeah, she was in a little movie called Captain Marvel, and apparently there was an awkward moment. Yeah, you can catch the video on YouTube. It's been all over the place, but here we go. Brie Larson can't catch a break in the world of Marvel. Something she acknowledged this weekend with a snarky answer for which the internet once again criticizing her. The actress was on hand Saturday at the D23 Expo, where Disney showcased a ton of new stuff they got coming out. One of those projects, The Marvels, involves Brie and her character Captain Marvel. Only this time, it'll include other ladies with Marvel-like powers. While she was doing press outside the main stage area, she was asked a pretty straightforward question: "How long do you think you'll continue to play Captain Marvel?" Her answer is telling. She says she frankly doesn't know, openly wondering, questioning whether people actually want her to take up the mantle any more than she already has. It was a little tense, and the interviewer tried lightening the mood to no real avail. Now the backlash, Bree's catching flack from a good amount of folks replying to this video in the comments, with their main gripe being, why is she making such a passive-aggressive stink over such a layup of a question, especially with this saga being years old. We'll spare you the details of it all, but essentially when Brie was cast as Captain Marvel back in 2018 and with its release in 2019, there was a lot of seemingly random hate aimed at her for a variety of reasons not even we understood. Her haters say she's simply unlikable. Her advocates say she's the victim of blatant misogyny by a rabid fan base. I'm going to explain the whole Brie Larson Captain Marvel thing. The writers behind the Captain Marvel movie and how she's been presented in the Avengers, I guess, she doesn't come off as a likable character. Am I wrong here?
No, she absolutely doesn't. And I think the
Yeah.
best analysis that I saw was the first video of Viva Fries that I ever saw, where he did a rebuttal legal analysis to a Legal Eagle video. Legal Eagle is a jackass. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Mhm.
And Viva came in and kind of schooled him a little bit on the way the law really works. And basically pointed out that this scene in Captain Marvel where she deals with a guy who's like, you know, you should smile more and whatnot. And, you know, she steals his clothes and his
car
bike or whatever.
in the movie. Yeah.
And it was clearly meant to be a send up to the Terminator. First forgetting that the Terminator was the bad guy, right? I mean,
Yes.
not a good guy. And secondly, just because you felt uncomfortable with the way the guy was talking, and he was a jackass. That doesn't give you, Captain Marvel, super strong superhero, the right to crush his hand and steal from him. That is using excessive force. You were never in any danger.
Yeah. Now that was in a cutout scene, though, the hand crushing part.
But that was the analysis that was, and
yes,
it was this kind of mentality that was in the story so clearly,
yes,
that people definitely responded to. But anyway, go on.
Anyway, yeah. So, but here was my issue with this whole interchange. If she had been on the premiere of like a movie, like an indie movie she'd been in, someone mentioned the Captain Marvel thing. Okay, fair enough. You know, maybe she doesn't want to talk about it right now while she's promoting something else. But she's at the D23.
Yep.
This is a Disney event, and the reporter is not being obnoxious or anything. He's just asking how long do you think you're going to play Captain Marvel for. He's actually just, feeding her a typical question you're going to feed to someone at one of these events, one of the stars, and she'll give, as long as they'll have me, or I don't know, some interesting things might be happening in the Marvels. I can't say what it will be. You kind of promote yourself, promote the character.
Exactly.
That didn't happen here. She was very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Snotty.
Yeah. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, listen, you work for Disney right now and you're at their event. You kind of.
She specifically said, do people even want me to? I don't even know.
And I couldn't figure out why is she I kept thinking, was she spending a lot of time reading the haters online or whatnot?
So here I can give a little more insight.
I have an idea. I think you're going to say the same thing. The Chris Gore video on Midnight's Edge, right?
You saw
talk about it.
So
you go ahead and explain it. You can explain it.
Yeah. So out of context, it comes off incredibly snarky. In context, it's almost worse because she literally, this is not referring back to, back when, she was promoting the movie originally and all the negativity and all the, big YouTube channels that got big, dumping on her and stuff. This was far more recent. It was that day. She literally was there at D23? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
And she was there to promote, the upcoming Marvels and whatnot. And she goes to she was supposed to be like a surprise guest or whatever. And she goes to the booth where, they're doing the presentation and nobody freaking shows up. Nobody cared.
It's like 30 people. Which is a ridiculously low number for an event.
Literally
like
nobody cared. And this is D23. This is the pixie dusters. Who are there to, I'm so excited to be here and I love everything Disney does. It's all wonderful. Even they didn't show up for her. So when she says, do people even want me to play? I don't know. She was directly responding to that. But this goes to show you the makeup of her character. She can't keep her character out of a public appearance,
Yeah.
She needs to just, what? Okay. This is what it is. And, you're an actress. You're currently acting. You are acting like a civilized human being, promoting Disney. Because that's what you're there for.
The reporter who asked that had no malice in what he was asking her. He was just being kind. Even when she's first flipping,
yeah.
he's even trying to give her an out, saying, "Oh, you're just being modest." Like he is actually trying to ease the situation, and she's just making it worse.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, your character now. I'm not even saying it's entirely her fault. I think the character's written horribly. She doesn't come off likable when she's done her little cameos, like she does a cameo at the end of Shang-Chi when she says, if you need to contact me, Bruce Banner, he has my number, and says, I don't have her number. She just always says that to get out of things. Like that makes her look awful.
Yeah.
Like everything they've done with this character makes her look awful.
Yes, it is very clear that her character comes off as a bitch. But you could say, well, that's not her fault. Except every time you see her out of character in a situation like this, Brie Larson comes off as a bitch.
I get the impression that Brie Larson has problems with men. That's the impression I've gotten from her, the way she's talked. Do you remember when she was on the road promoting Avengers Endgame, when Don Cheadle looked furious in those interviews
Cheadle's
with her.
Like, don't touch me.
He was not happy. Chris Hemsworth, he's making some joke like, "Oh, I didn't know you're not supposed to do your own stunt." Says, "Oh, so you'll be the next Tom Cruise." I think he's just making an innocent joke. I'll be the next me, thank you very much. He gets all snide and snotty, and it's like, listen to me. You're the new hero here. These are the veteran actors, and they're not really acting with malice.
Well, it's very clear she bought into the hype. She bought into the who the hell she is. And when she got into, I think it was that same interview where she was getting into who was the more powerful superhero. It's like, are you serious? This is the kind of stuff that 12-year-olds argue about on the playground, not you professional actor who plays a character.
Yeah.
It's just freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed. I remember her interview along with Jeremy Renner. She was promoting her activism when talking about her character, while Renner said he was doing this for the fans. Big difference. Yeah. You're not even at the place right now where you can be worrying about doing this for your activism. You're not a star. You're not a movie star yet. You have won an Academy Award. You might be a good actress, but you're not the movie star yet. There was a line. It was when George Lazenby was doing Honor Majesty's Secret Service.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will defend him. I think he got kind of a raw deal, but he made mistakes too when he was starting out in the role. And I think there's like a cast party. And he got, I don't know if everyone was going to it, but I think he was mad because he didn't get a specified invitation because he was the star or something. He's like, well, I'm the star or something. And then Cubby Broccoli looked at him and he says, you're not a star until the public makes you a star. And that has not happened yet. Yeah. And that's what's going on with Brie Larson, especially Captain Marvel.
In fact, I will make the example of Henry Cavill. I'm not a huge fan. I don't care for that iteration of Superman.
Yeah, neither do I. But he himself, I don't. Yeah.
But he knows how to garner a fan base. He has never said anything to piss off the fans. Everything he does makes his fans just love him all the more. And I'll tell you something, as somebody who's, not really his target audience, I look at him and, well, good on you, mate.
It's true. There's always been a lot of hate for his iteration of Superman. See, we're going to be getting into another article in a bit. I don't know if I want to
that is an example.
Oh, you only bash the women characters. No, people have been bashing Man of Steel and his iteration of Superman since it happened. But he doesn't lash out against people that criticize him.
That is the example I was making, where you could say, well, it's not his fault. It's
how the character's written, and I can see maybe if they could write a good Superman movie with him in it as a good Superman, I might be willing to give that. When you see him
off camera or on social media, you can say, okay, it really is true. This guy ain't a bad guy. It's clearly the character they're forcing him to play. Whereas you can't do that with Brie Larson. You can say it's not her fault. This is what she was given to work with. But then you go, I'm sorry. I have clip after clip after clip of her in interviews and what she's putting out on social media herself. The woman's just a bitch.
Remember, she was supposed to be the face of Phase 4 through 6.
And let's go back into that. She decided I am the greatest because I am being set up to be the star going forward. And it's exactly what you said about George Lazenby. You're not a fan until the fans make you a fan.
let's go back to Marvel Phase 1. Let's go back to Robert Downey Jr. Where was his career at that point? He had been in prison because he had a big drug addiction problem. And I know he's cleaned himself up, good for him. But I remember when he had gotten out of prison and then he was back in the street and then he ended up back in there because he was on Ally McBeal for a season. I remember that he was her love interest that one season. And then they couldn't cast him on that show because he had a relapse, I think. And it was a big disaster. And he's the comeback kid. But I think he knew at that time, I'm at rock bottom. I'm trying to start my career back. And he had to endear himself to the public all over again. And even with looking at Chris Hemsworth and even the other Chris. Sorry.
Chris
Evans. You know, I mean, when they were starting out, they were kind of known quantities. You'd see them in movies, but they weren't like the big stars. They knew to shut their mouth at least at that time. Now, of course, Evans has got more political as he's been
started
out of
getting
there.
Political since then.
But to be fair, even with him, he had waited till he had become the face of Captain America, and he had been accepted by the fans as a good Captain America.
Not only that, but
before he went nuts, you know, I mean, that's it.
Did he wait until he had the fan base and whatnot, he waited until it was very clear Captain America was done, and he was walking away from it.
Yeah,
you know.
And here's the deal, and I'm sorry, and now here's the end result. She's not popular. Her character is not popular.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people might be more likely to see this movie, The Marvels, off of Ms. Marvel rather than Captain Marvel at this point.
Exactly. And I think
I'll say that actress seems likable to me. I've seen her in interviews. She's a likable young woman. I mean, just go ahead.
And that's another example of the material she's given to work with may not be the best, but
it's not her fault. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
What I was going to say though is getting back to Brie Larson's comment. Does anybody want to see me do it again? I really don't know. Let me help you out, Brie. Nobody does. And anyone that does is not buying the toys and the t-shirts and probably not even going to see the movie. They're just your followers on social media that give you likes and clicks, but that doesn't make you any money. So no, nobody wants to see you continue.
Yeah, we were referring to this Auditor Dread. That video is available. And that's why we figured out why, because I didn't understand why she was being so snippy with the reporter. Because, like I said, if he had been said anything obnoxious or something, maybe. But if this was at a different event, it's a Disney event. He's just asking you a simple question about Captain Marvel. There's no reason you need to be getting snippy with that reporter.
About so unprofessional.
Yeah.
If you can't handle heckling and people not liking you, people not showing up for you, you are in the wrong business. You need to have grace and class. And you got to say, you know what? Thousands of people didn't show up for me, but 30 people did. And I love those 30 people. And those 30 people will love you for it. And that will come through if you're genuine. And
that's how you build a fan base.
But when you've already alienated all white men and you've alienated pretty much all men, period, and all the fans of the characters that came before you, and, you know, I said it back at the time. Why are so many people purposely going out of their way to alienate half of their potential fan base? We don't want anyone to support us who's a Trump supporter. We don't want anyone who's a Republican. We don't want any men. We don't want any white people. Well,
you keep making lists of who you don't want as your fans.
Yeah, your audience is getting smaller and smaller and smaller by your own decisions and expressed desires. Now you need 100% of them to even be able to continue in your career and make money. And you're not going to, because you're not that good to even draw them in either.
Yeah. So, here we go. Carol Danvers is actually a good character part of the MCU depiction. No, I mean, I think she was a very nice looking character too. Her role portrayal in the comics, you know.
Look, I remember what was the movie where the snap happened and everyone was starting to disappear, and
Infinity War.
Infinity War, right. And at the very end, or in the middle credits or whatever, Sam Jackson, does the beeper thing, and he disappears and the beeper falls, and it's got the Captain Marvel symbol on it. And I'm like, I saw this at the drive-in with Netter, and I was like, yes. And Netter's like, what is that? I said, Captain Marvel. And I was excited about that. But then, boom, I don't care what white men think about A Wrinkle in Time That Wasn't Made for Him. And then all the other stuff. And I was like, oh, is that how this is going? They had me. I was interested. I would have gone to see that movie. But as soon as I got, I don't care what white men think, it's not made for them. Well, you know what? Nothing you ever do is going to be made for me, and I'm out.
But you didn't get to see Nick Fury's origin of how he lost his eye. It wasn't that cool story about how,
That's why it's great.
Remember in the one Captain America movie where he gives like an origin of how he lost his eye, or somebody I trusted did this. It was some cryptic thing that you're like, there's a good story there, and then no, it's just the stupid Flurgan cat that scratched his eye. Dumb.
And that's what I'm talking about. You're set up for a great story, and you blew it. Same thing with the fans were desperate for a prequel story with what's his name, Arrow Boy and Black Widow.
Because
of the talk about
Hawkeye.
Yeah, Hawkeye
and Black Widow.
Because of all the talk about them, but we never actually got that.
Show their history, maybe how she first started at S.H.I.E.L.D. That might have been interesting, right? Yeah. All right, feel free to cut me off while I'm reading this.
Let's make this one really quick. Don't go into all the read on this.
Okay.
But this David Jaffe guy, I don't know who he is, and I don't give a shit anymore. He's one of these people that comes out to do his virtue signaling. And who cares what he thinks?
Maybe he's on the payroll for one of these. Maybe Disney paid him off to do this. David Jaffe, he was the creator of the God of War games. Apparently, he goes back in gaming a while. I think he even worked on Mickey Mania from the 16-bit era. I think he's retired now as a game developer. He just has a YouTube channel now. He's got a funky beard. In fact, I remember, I thought he was more politically neutral, at least because I remember during the Gamergate days, like someone had asked him, this one reporter said about all the misogyny in God of War. And he says, this other person that worked for, not you. He told the reporters, like, okay, good on you. You're calling out the reporter for pretending, it's not me saying it's just somebody else because, it's bullshit. The reporter is the one really asking this question. But I don't know. He's way off base here. He's accusing it. It's all, I don't know. This happened when someone made a comment about the Brie Larson video, and it's okay.
So we just went on this whole tirade about why we're saying what we're saying. It has nothing to do with her being a woman. It just has to do with her being a shit person. Okay, and she did that herself. And the criticisms are what they are. They stand. She earned them. And for this guy to say otherwise, it's that fan baiting we were talking about. Everything is misogyny. Everything is ists and phobes. And we gloss over what a shitty movie it was and how poorly it was written because defend the woman.
So here we go. It's like they hate Black Widow, She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, and Captain Marvel, aka strong women who don't pine for male approval. They love Scarlet Witch, a woman who literally destroys universes because she can't have the man she loves. So he's just talking a lot of trash about the fan base. Nobody ever hated Black Widow. Black Widow was actually a very popular character, which is why she got her movie. Maybe they didn't like the Black Widow movie because it was kind of a trash fire.
This is again not being very disingenuous about what people are actually saying. You're not paying attention to what people are actually saying. You're running with your own straw man over here, because people had wanted a Black Widow movie since her first appearance.
Yeah.
And they wanted it, and Disney kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and they finally gave it to us after they'd fucking killed her off.
Yeah.
You don't do it, that's too late. You waited too long. Because now you're going to tell us an origin story or whatever for a character that we
Yeah,
already
it's
know
just-
is dead and doesn't have a future anymore.
The villain was supposed to be Harvey Weinstein too. You could tell he was supposed to be Harvey Weinstein. That's what they based him on. Even though he's a ex KGB guy, but you could tell
And
his
there's
whole
another thing.
look was Harvey
We're all
Weinstein.
fucking sick of real world politics being coded into these
No,
films.
Disney, you were the ones who shielded him all those years, so you don't have room to talk and act all righteous now.
Damn right there.
I'm just going to say this. You knew. People at your company knew what he was up to. Following on this initial point, though, yeah, he says they hate Black Widow, She-Hulk. You've complimented the actress. You said she was the right actress for the part on that show. It's just the show sounds pretty horrendous.
I'm telling you, I watched Orphan Black, and she was phenomenal. I mean, she's literally playing a dozen or so clones of the same person, and each one has a completely different character. One of them was Russian. I mean, it was one of them was gay. So she runs this whole gambit of characters, and she does it so well, you know? So if you're gonna cast someone as She-Hulk, it's like, great, that's brilliant. She could play Jennifer Walters, she could play She-Hulk, and that's not what she's doing.
And then it turns into what sounds like to me Wynant the series.
She's playing Jennifer Walters and digital green Jessica Walters. I mean, it's
isn't Jessica Walters enough? Isn't she enough? That's the whole point of the show. You're enough as you are. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Ms. Marvel. Again, the show doesn't look like it's aimed at me because it looks like it's one of these tween type series. Like maybe if I was 11, I might like it. I don't know. I have nothing against the actress on there. I've never seen it. I actually complimented the actress that she actually had some knowledge of the MCU, unlike some of the writers or the Marvel Universe at least. And Captain Marvel, I'm sorry, average movie at best, and I'm being generous there. And it just wasn't that good. But even still, she was worse in the Avengers movie. So they've made her worse since then. She just comes off as unlikable. And of course, he's screaming it's misogyny and all this other stuff. And people are arguing, look, we don't hate Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. We just hate. We didn't like Wonder Woman 84 because it was a bad movie. You know.
Yeah, and
it's just
most people,
she's fine.
And most people did end up liking the original Wonder Woman movie. I still can't forgive them for switching it to World War I instead of World War II.
Yeah, I know. They were worried about being too much like Captain America. That's why they did it.
It's their own fault for waiting so long.
And they just should have said it in modern times, maybe, and had her come out in modern times like all the other characters. But what was I going to say though? And Scarlet Witch. I'm sorry. Do people like Scarlet Witch now since WandaVision in the last movie?
Again, they
turned her into a villain, didn't they?
A very disingenuous take on the situation. It's a straw man. You know, he's picking some people who really liked Wanda, and he's right. She was a villain. Most of us that didn't like it are pointing that out and saying, you know, we did like Wanda. You turned her into a villain, and she gets no comeuppance whatsoever. And she's made out to be a hero for her selfishness, you know, and for torturing people. It's, you know, it's incredibly hypocritical. It is the story that people don't like. It's not the character or the person. It's what they've done. And for him to say, well, people liked her, they did.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. And there's a reason for that.
Because of the way she was written. But again, I don't have anything against Elizabeth Olsen. I'm not necessarily...
No, not at all.
I mean, I don't know. You're probably under contract to play these parts at some point, I would assume. But Iron Man 2 is a shit movie, he opined. I don't think it's a shit movie. I'm not saying it's great, but it's not a shit movie. Ant-Man, the first Man, was not a shit movie, but it was as much most as a fucking average episode. I liked Ant-Man. You're just being an asshole here. And here's another thing, too. Look at a list of MCU titles, even Thor the Dark World. Everybody attacks Thor the Dark World. I don't understand this. When I saw it, you know what I thought? Okay, it's a superhero movie. That's what I'm watching here. It's a Thor superhero movie. That's what it felt like to me. It didn't feel that. It felt like actually probably I kind of wish we had more movies like that in the MCU, just straight up superhero movies. Like I kind of like the standalone movies more than the ensemble movies. And he's bringing Avengers 2. I had some issues with Avengers 2 as well, but I'm just saying it's just even
well,
the Eternals.
You make a great point with the standalone movies, because I'm sorry, I forgot who it was in the chat who made this comment before. The original series 1 or phase 1 or whatever you want to call it were standalone movies where you went to see a Captain America movie and you saw a Captain America movie. It wasn't just a long 2-hour trailer for the next thing. You know, and your main character is sidelined in favor of the new character they're trying to promote.
Mm-hmm. That happens a lot. Yeah, I mean, well, let's be blunt. Iron Man 2, what is that? That's Avengers. That's Avengers setup, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then what is it? Avengers 2 is a lot of setup for sequels, including a Thor sequel that never got made because we got. Never mind. I don't feel like getting into it. Jaffe, who created a toxic male misogynist video game, is probably trying to garner virtue points before they seek to cancel him. Oh, probably.
Always watch out for the male feminist because they are everything that they claim to be against.
Yeah. Here's the thing with the God of War games, those early ones. You're playing a bad character, like kind of an evil character. That's sort of what you're playing as, and that's fine, but you know, it's, I don't know. Are we off of this now? Do we want to talk more about this, Jaffe?
I don't know. I'm just kind of laughing that you say that the God of War is, you mean the God of War isn't all unicorns and sunshine? The God of War is...
Okay. Here's the plot of God of War as I remember. I didn't really play the game all the way through, but you play Kratos, okay? And Kratos... Something happens where Kratos' wife and children die, and he blames it on Ares. I think Ares might be responsible. So he's going after Ares. He wants to kill Ares. He wants to kill a god, okay? And I don't know if he was doing this in Ares. I'm not an expert on the series. I think at the end of the game, he does kill Ares. Spoiler alert. And then the Pantheon said, you killed Ares. Now you have to become the new God of War.
Yeah.
And then Kratos is God of War, and then he's even worse than Ares, so then the Pantheon strips him of some of his powers, and he's back to the beginning. Then he goes after the Greek gods, and now he wants to kill all of them, like Zeus and Athena, and well, not Athena, but, you know, all the other... There's actually a funny scene in part 2 where he has to fight Perseus, and they got Harry Hamlin to play Perseus.
Oh, that's awesome.
that is awesome. Funny, so that was kind of a neat little trick there. And I don't know. I don't know if the games were a wink and a nod because he is just a bad guy, Kratos. But he's angry because of his family getting murdered. I don't know. But again, David Jaffe, that's what this is reminding me of. Maybe he is one of these male feminist types. I don't know what's going on here. So we'll find out he has some skeletons in his closets probably in a year or two after this.
Well, he doesn't even need to. Just the fact that he made God of War, where you got a big muscular guy getting into bed with, you know, 2 women and their boobies are hanging out.
Yeah, you can't have that anymore in games. You can't have that in games anymore.
Yeah.
Trust me, they completely changed the tone of the new God of War games. He's more like a guy taking care of his son now. And it's, you know, I don't know much about those. They've gone with the Norse mythology in the sequels, which I always kind of find that odd when they do that, because Norse and Greek mythology, I don't see them mixing in the same world.
No, doesn't make a lot of sense.
They did that on Xena too, didn't they?
Yeah, sometimes.
For showing up, and it's all... I actually like Iron Man 2 and 3. I'm a big fan of Iron Man 3. I know some people don't like that one. That's the one with the Mandarin with Ben Kingsley. I know some people were mad because he...
Is that the one where he's got to get over the corruption in his heart mechanism or whatever?
No.
Or was that 2?
That was 2, but he still has the heart mechanism in 3. That's the one where he's fighting off the almost Terminator-esque villains, you know, the super people. I forget what they were.
It was the
takes
Marvel
place
Universe.
at Christmas time. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Marvel Universe version of Extremis or whatever that was called. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just felt that 2 and 3 were good, but what bothered me the most about them is how great they could have been if they had just brought a little bit more of the gravitas of the stories that they were purporting
Oh,
to tell.
sure.
You know?
But at that point, Disney was basically running things, I think, at that point.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's the problem.
Kratos can be argued as much better than the people he's killing. He's not devoid of depth still. Yeah, well, again, and I argue, well, it's Greek myth, or at least I don't know. So what am I talking about now? Okay. TMZ. No, I already did this. Okay. Let's move on. Let's move on from Brie Larson. I think we spent way more time about her than I was going to, and I'm sure people are waiting for the announcement that GoldenEye is back. Yay! You excited about GoldenEye being back?
I wouldn't say I'm excited, but it sounds like good news.
Okay.
I remember you mentioning this some time ago. Looking forward to it.
God of War was actually good. Last of Us, Father learning how to. Yeah, it might have been fine. I didn't play it though, but I'm not wasn't picking on it. I just haven't. I know they changed the tone of it. Okay, so GoldenEye is finally coming back. Remember that rumor I talked about a while back?
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend too much time with this. GoldenEye was a James Bond video game, first-person shooter. The year before Ocarina of Time came out, this was the big Nintendo 64 game of the 97 Christmas season. GoldenEye 007 is finally coming to Nintendo Switch and Xbox. Nintendo announced today that Rare is releasing GoldenEye HD on Nintendo Switch and Xbox as soon as a remaster of the legendary Nintendo 64 title that launched in 1997. The remaster game on Xbox includes 4K resolution, smoother frame rates, and even split-screen local multiplayer. Rare says it will even arrive on Xbox Game Pass and Nintendo Switch Online, but online multiplayer modes will be exclusive to the Switch version, according to a post on the official 007 site. Microsoft confirmed the lack of online multiplayer on Xbox in a statement to The Verge, and appears to be because of the Xbox and Nintendo Switch version are actually different. Nintendo appears to be using the original game, whereas Microsoft says it has made a faithful recreation of GoldenEye 007. There is no announced date for the GoldenEye 007 release just yet on either platforms. The classic campaign mode and cheat modes will return alongside support for dual analog sticks and native 16:9 aspect ratio at up to 4K Revolution Xbox. Okay. If you already own a digital copy of Rare Replay, then GoldenEye 007 is included as free of charge. If only I owned a digital copy of the Rare Replay collection on my Xbox One. Oh, wait, I do. I'm sorry. You can buy it still. Sometimes even have it on sale. It's a good value for what you get if you get it on sale. Like for under $10, you get a ton of classic Rare games from the N64 era and other things. And now they're putting GoldenEye on with it. I suspect that the N64 version is going to be made because Nintendo now has a part of their subscription services. You get access to old Nintendo games, and even now they've added Nintendo 64 games and Sega Genesis games onto it for more money, for a premium price, and you can play the games. I guess some of them you can play online. You don't actually get to keep these games, though. It's more like you're renting them. Like you get to download them temporarily, unless your subscription runs out. Then they disappear.
Imagine that.
I don't like it. This is why we say own physical media.
Yep.
And granted, the one on the Xbox isn't physical, but at least you sort of own it because it's part of your digital collection. So get it on Xbox if you want to own it physically. If you want to play it online, subscribe to the Switch Online service. Or maybe just play Quake. I'm sorry. Actually, though, it's cool that GoldenEye's come back. It looks like they're two different versions of the game. I suspect that the Xbox version is the remastered version of GoldenEye they had worked on years ago, but weren't able to release due to rights issues. Here's the problem with GoldenEye. I'll explain it to you. I think I've talked about this in the past. Rare made the game for Nintendo for the N64. Then the next generation, Microsoft ended up buying Rare. So Microsoft owned Rare, which means they owned a lot of games that Nintendo published, except for any games with Donkey Kong in them. The Donkey Kong Country games, they still stayed with Nintendo. And then you have Activision and both Activision and Electronic Arts at various times owning the license to James Bond. So you have three different companies pulling apart GoldenEye, the classic game, that should never get another release because you have to deal with the James Bond license and then partial ownership by Nintendo and Microsoft, and they have competing consoles. But in recent years, Nintendo and Microsoft have gotten more friendly from each other. Yes, they're still technically competing with each other, but Microsoft allowed Cuphead to come out on the Nintendo Switch, so that used to be a big Xbox exclusive. So I think the deal is okay, we'll release it on both this way, and you get the nice remastered version on Xbox with the 4K resolution. You don't get that version on the Switch, but you get to play it online with other people on the Switch. So I think the idea is it's a win-win for both companies, right?
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Okay, so it's good that they worked that out.
I always say that. Sometimes these companies in competition end up shooting themselves in the foot.
Like with Batman.
Nobody makes it. Like we talked about with Batman, where
Batman
what was
66.
Was it 20th Century Fox and
20th Century Fox, and then was it Warner Brothers and somebody
and
else?
Warner
or something?
Brothers.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers owns Batman, but 20th Century Fox owns the actual episodes.
Yeah.
So neither one of them could stomach the other one making any money on it. So nobody made any money, and eventually they decided, you know what? Let's come to an agreement, because there's money to be made here, and neither one of us is making any of it.
Okay. So obviously the reason I bring up GoldenEye is because this was a fans are divided. I don't know what that's about. Okay. The Legend of Zelda. Oh, yes, they are. Yes, they're divided about this. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom title has fans divided. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has fans divided. They don't know if it's tears or tears. The title of the so Nintendo announced a release date for the new Legend of Zelda game. It's going to come out May 12th, 2023. If they stick to that date, that's right around the corner, actually. The title of the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was revealed at the end of September 13th, 2022. Nintendo Direct broadcast subtitled Tears of the Kingdom, and the upcoming game's newest teaser showed off graphical improvements, new mechanics. While the trailer has certainly stirred up the Zelda fan base, some details have fans questioning the new game, in particular how to pronounce the first word of the title and what could mean for the game. The distinction between tears and tears is easier to understand when spoken aloud. The Tears of the Kingdom trailer did not have a voiceover, though, leaving fans to speculate wildly on what the title of the new Zelda game could mean. Both versions of TEAR make sense given what is presented in the newest teaser. On one hand, some Zelda fans consider it a reference to metaphorical teardrops, as if the Kingdom of Hyrule is weeping or in a saddened state of some description. On the other hand, some say it could be referencing rips, bringing up time travel mechanics seen in other Zelda games, like tears in the fabric of space-time, probably, right? Right. The resulting discourse has fans debating the future of Zelda. So, and I already know people are going to be arguing about this for months now. Don't get me started on the Zelda timeline. Like, there were fans, because time travel got introduced in Ocarina of Time, there were fans that figured that it ended up splitting a timeline, and now they're two different Zelda timelines, and people were freaking out about it, and they were writing into Nintendo and asking which is the correct timeline. Are there two timelines? It was a big mess. Okay, And I think Nintendo eventually realized they're not two timelines, they're three timelines, and I think that threw people off again. So, if Tears of the Kingdom, yes.
Let me just really quickly interject here. So what the whole crux of this is, people are losing their shit over a homograph.
Yes.
And I'm looking at this, especially based on what you were telling me in the green room before we went live, that this homograph seems to be intentional. And maybe, just maybe, they're using it in a clever and elegant way that it means both. It does mean tear, and it means tear. It can mean both of those things at the same time. And you can only do that with a homograph in writing. If
it would be interesting
say it out loud,
both, yeah.
You have to say one or the other.
Right? Let's see. Yeah. Nintendo literally said tears like crying, but kanji, you realize that. I don't know. Maybe they did in the Japanese talk, but I don't think they actually said it when being interviewed, unless they said it later on.
And I did want to, go all the way back to the beginning. The very first comment, Auditor Dread, you really encouraged me a lot, because you said, I like the creativity for tears or tears of the kingdom. Basically what I had done on the thumbnail, where I've got the picture being torn and the character is crying.
Exactly.
Thank you for noticing that kind of detail.
I think Tears like crying. Tears in the game just sounds better. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. They're not going to change the title. That's the one we're sticking with. So they announced the title and release date. So you Zelda fans out there, and I am one of them, you'll have something to look forward to in May. If any of you have bothered to manage to beat Breath of the Wild yet, which I have not, because that game is huge. It's Breath of the Wild is fascinating because you know what the plot of it is. You wake up, Link wakes up, and he was in a cryogenic sleep. And then you find out as you're playing the game. Well, no. The idea is with Link, he gets reincarnated, or like there's a new hero born every other generation or something, and he's there, takes the mantle of the hero to stop whatever evil is threatening Hyrule. And he's usually named Link, or he's usually named whatever the player names him. But and the idea is that this hero is always there, and there's always also a Princess Zelda that pops up as well. The trouble is that 100 years prior. Ganon reappeared, and at this point he's called Calamity Ganon because it takes place so far in the future. Ganon is more just like an evil force. It's not even like a person anymore. And they lost. The heroes lost, and the evil destroyed Hyrule. Okay. Gotcha. And you wake up in the ruins of Hyrule. And yet, as you go through the game, you find out there are still people surviving and living in these small towns and stuff. But basically, there was a huge disaster that happened. And I think Link was cryogenically frozen so he could eventually remember what happened 100 years prior and then figure out a way to stop it in 100 years later. And it's fascinating because you don't usually see that. Usually the heroes stop it, but they weren't able to. And it wasn't really through any fault of their own. In fact, the king argued that he believed the prophecy of Calamity Ganon returning, and they were preparing, but it still wasn't enough. And it's kind of a tragic thing. It was a thing. But
speaking of tragedy, we have to say goodbye to Horizon Talker. Thanks for stopping in, but he's got to rest up for a stream tomorrow. So take care, buddy.
All right. Well, good luck on your stream. Feel free to post it if you're, all right, but we'll keep an eye out for that.
Oh, he'll catch the rest of the stream tomorrow. I missed.
Oh, he'll catch the rest of the stream. Okay.
Okay.
But, if any of you guys have content, let us know. We'll promote you. Okay.
Absolutely.
As long as you're okay. So here we go. A Fire Emblem game was announced. So
yeah, this is where I get completely lost, man. You're gonna have to explain this to me.
Okay, we'll do another good old days where I talk for a half hour about Fire Emblem. Okay, no.
Maybe need that, yeah.
Here's the thing. I typically, even though I am a Nintendo fan, I don't typically do game talk on this channel because I know Troy isn't always up with especially console gaming, but he said a while ago, no, bring up the game stuff. So I said, okay. I'm big into Nintendo games. I do like Nintendo games. I'm not exclusive with Nintendo anymore.
You should pay attention to what the chat is saying more than what I say. The chat responds well to the game talk. So I'd say your audience likes what we're talking about here. See, this is what I'm talking about. I'm the apostate here, so don't go by what I say.
Yeah. Fire Emblem Engage announced following leaks arriving in January. So there were leaks that there was a new Fire Emblem game, that Nintendo had a new Fire Emblem game out. They had a spin-off Fire Emblem title made by the Dynasty Warriors people. I think they were trying to keep this under wraps because they wanted Fire Emblem fans to go out and buy this spin-off title, and then they didn't want to interfere with the sales of that. It's like trying to announce a Star Wars title every other month. You kind of wanted people to just focus on the one. I'm sorry, I'm being a little rude there to Disney. I'm sorry.
No, Disney deserves rude.
Like maybe just focus on making The Mandalorian as good as it could be, and then no, wait, you can't do that. We have to have Andor and Obi-Wan and all this, and just anyway. There are two Fire Emblem Warriors. I have the old one. I don't have the new one yet, though. No one has talked enough about Fire Emblem. I do want to make a point. Chrissy Kitty, who is a lady, she admitted that earlier. Not that it matters. I'm just saying we welcome everybody in this chat. Fire Emblem is. I think I was watching an Alana Pierce video where she was reacting to the Nintendo E3, and she was questioning, I wonder why Fire Emblem isn't more popular, like not as popular as Final Fantasy. And I have this reaction to say to that. We don't want it getting too popular. Because when things get too popular, that's when
They
end up
screwing it up.
They end up getting screwed up. Right now, it's popular enough that we get the games and they get localized well. So just except for Fates.
Real quick, 30 seconds or less. What is Fire Emblem? Does it have anything to do with any other game that I might know, or is it its own thing?
No, Fire Emblem is its own thing. Fire Emblem is a tactical strategy RPG. So it has fantasy tropes in it, but it is strategy. It is not real-time strategy like, let's say, a Warcraft game. It is turn-based strategy. It's like moving your pieces around on a chessboard and having them fight other pieces.
Right, so you have to use your strategy. Think through what you're going to do before you execute.
It's like you're the tactician rather than the warrior on the battlefield. That's how the game is.
Gotcha.
And it's very addictive. I try not to play them too often because I will get sucked in and I won't stop. I was obsessed with Fire Emblem Path of Radiance on the GameCube. I beat that game. Very, very proud I beat that game. In fact, recently I was playing Fire Emblem Echoes on my 3DS. I still have Fire Emblem Three Houses for my Nintendo Switch. I haven't gotten into it yet because I know as soon as I do, I won't be able to put it down. And I'm a very busy man these days. But it is a wonderful fantasy series. Story-wise, it takes place in a fantasy universe more akin to something like Game of Thrones. Like, you're not going to see like elves or dwarves or centaurs or stuff like that. It's mainly human characters. Sometimes you see other races, like they did have one in Path of Radiance. You had beast people, like people that could transform into like dragons or wolves or something like that. That was a race of people that you ran to that were still humanoid, but they had. But for the most part, it is more humans versus humans. But you do end up fighting undead creatures sometimes or dragons every so often. Of course, sometimes it's just you going up against human armies, but then of course you have mages and healers and knights on horseback and all your different characters. Some people are archers, and they all have different abilities. Like archers aren't very good at defense if they're up close, but they can shoot very far away. And it's a wonderful tactical strategy game series. It's not really available on anything. I think there's a mobile version I haven't tried out yet, but it's mainly a Nintendo console series. And the plots always suck you in because they always have kind of political intrigue going on, like in fact, I think Fire Emblem Three Houses, you choose to be a join of one of these three houses, and I don't know if you have to fight the other houses at some point, so you're seeing the perspective and the conflict of different things. It's neat. I can't speak as an expert on Three Houses. I haven't played it, but yeah, Fire Emblem is a mobile Nintendo game too. It's probably a free-to-pay game, isn't it? Fire Emblem Path of Radiance was my first Fire Emblem game and have been hooked ever since. It's one of the best. My first one was the one they released in the Game Boy. In fact, it's funny, I was sending Troy old Nintendo commercials before the stream. I sent you the Zelda one with the dance number. Did you like
some
that one?
of those? Man, I'm telling you, I'd look and it'd be like, the hell did I just watch?
That was for Link to the Past in Japan. They had like a you said the dancing was good at least, but
oh yeah, it was a great dance routine. I didn't see what it had to do with the game at all.
Is Roy and Martha Fire Emblem? I'm aware of them only because of Smash Bros. Yes, they are from the Fire Emblem games. I don't think I've ever played a game with Roy in it because we didn't get those released over here. Here's what happened with Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem actually dates back to the original NES, just like Legend of Zelda does. But we didn't get one of those games released over here until the Game Boy Advance, like in 2000. I think it was 2003 when we first got it. That's because on the NES, Nintendo was experimenting with releasing role-playing games for American audiences. Like they released Dragon Warrior, now known as Dragon Quest, over here, and it did okay, but didn't do great. And then they got the rights to release Final Fantasy over here. Final Fantasy. Have you heard of that game series?
Oh yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah. They released the first one of that, tanked, and they didn't release Fire Emblem as a result, which is their own property. But of course, Final Fantasy took off later on. American audiences became more, at least for consoles, became more interested in RPGs, so now they've started releasing these games over here. Agent Boomer, you want some breaking news? I don't know. Is it good or bad? Marth's game was remade for 3DS. I have the one for 3DS. Yeah, the Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, I think that was called. They remade it. I wish they would remake the Super Nintendo Fire Emblem game, which title translates to Genealogy of the Holy War. And I don't know if the villains in that game were like an organized religion or something, It's like, because it all takes place in these fantasy worlds. But it's I don't know why it's called Genealogy of the Holy War. It just, but we've never gotten it released over here, so I don't know. Anyway, let me read the article. It turns out that Fire Emblem the Fire Emblem game that leaked several months ago is real after all and will be called Fire Emblem Engage. During today's Nintendo Direct, Engage will focus on a new protagonist, Alir, who has a real wild hairstyle. Alir is known as Divine Dragon and is a member of a royal family that was once revered as deities, but he's been asleep for 1,000 years when he awakens at the start of the game. That's interesting, huh? Okay, notably, characters that Engage appear to be paired in some spiritual way with past Fire Emblem heroes, with Alir paired with Marth. Sigurd and Celicia also make appearances. Fire Emblem Engage appears to include elements from Fire Emblem Three Houses, such as town building and relationship elements as well. It's planned for release on January 20th, 2023, and a Divine Edition with collectibles will also be on sale. So there you go. Fire Emblem fans, you got something to look forward to. Here's another article. The new Fire Emblem hero was created by a VTube designer. You know the VTubers?
Yes.
Matchstick showing you
Thanks to Matchstick, yes, I do.
The cute anime girls playing Grand Theft Auto. So. Oh, I'd heard that GTA 3 got Agent Boomer hacker got his hands on a bunch of GTA 6 stuff. He leaked 90 pre-alpha clips and is extorting Rockstar for source code. I'll touch on that in a minute, real quick. But that happened with Capcom with the latest Resident Evil too. But I'll get into that. You gotta watch out for those hackers.
I guess so.
Here we go. New Fire Emblem was created by a VTuber. Nintendo kicked off its latest broadcast with the official reveal of Fire Emblem Engage arriving in Switch 2023. During the first look, players were introduced to the game's protagonist, a new character rocking a red and blue hairstyle. If you're wondering why this new hero looks like a VTuber, it turns out the illustrator involved actually has a bit of history in the field. Artist and illustrator Miko Picuzzo took credit via Twitter for his new character. She's previously helped design the VTubers Hakos Bales, if I'm saying that wrong, Kaguya Luna, and Pinky Pop Hepburn. Do you like that name, Pinky Pop Hepburn?
Sure.
Picasso is also known for the character Sai Shinuza in Fatal Grand Order release themes. Okay. But, yeah, the main talking point at the moment seems to be focused on the character's hair. So, yeah, apparently people have been comparing him to the Pepsi logo. You know, red and blue?
Yep.
Okay. Fire Emblem looks fun. But the reason I bring this up is that people were kind of saying, oh, Nintendo had a bad presentation. I'm thinking they announced a new Zelda game release date. They announced a new Fire Emblem game. They also announced Pikmin 4, which is another big series there, which I didn't have time to get into here. So it looks like you're going to have 3 really good games to buy on the Switch in 2023, so it's not all bad. You may not have electricity to play your games with, but you'll have the games really. Let's be positive, but, you know, there's stuff coming out. As for that hacker that Matchstick mentioned, maybe we'll bring this up more next week. Did you know that Capcom had their site hacked with Resident Evil 6 and they were being ransomed? We're going to release the ending of Resident Evil 6 if you don't pay us off. And you know what Capcom did? They refused to pay the ransom. They said, okay, leak it then. Yeah. We'll take our chances. They're not playing that game, which I guess is what you have to do, right? Because it's like holding a hostage. So now someone's doing the same thing with Rockstar. That happened with The Last of Us Part 2 as well. Okay, now we got to talk about G4.
Okay.
This G4 situation is so stupid. I'd heard that the reason the guy brought it back was because he was dating Olivia Munn at the time. And I think he did it for her, bring G4 to her, and then she ended up dumping him for another man. But he was still stuck with bringing G4 back to the internet, and G4TV hit with major layoffs less than a year after coming back.
But I will point out that the one person who should have been let go was not.
She'll be there. She'll be the last one let go. At least somewhere between 20 and 30 staff members are laid off at G4TV today, according to three sources familiar with the business. The video game talk show network from the 2000s was resurrected last fall on streaming platforms like Twitch as well as cable TV, but now faces major upheaval less than a year later. I truly cannot imagine the company continuing to produce our slate of content without the people we lost today, said one employee. I think this company is sinking. The timing and severity of the cuts took the staff by surprise, with talent showing up on set ready to film, only to have programming canceled as HR reps met individually with employees. While it's not clear what extent the layoffs will be, one source said that those affected were told that they would receive anywhere between 16 weeks and 6 months of severance based on their tenure with Comcast, G4's parent company. Resources tell Kotaku that G4's finances have been in bad shape for some time, and managers were tasked with looking for cost savings wherever possible. Things apparently came to a head during an all-hands meeting a couple months ago when then G4 president Russell Aarons discussed the troubles the business was facing, proposed unrealistic revenue goals for the year ahead. Staff felt blindsided, one source said, due to a lack of clear goals for measuring success against up to that point. Aarons left shortly after and was replaced by Comcast spectator Joe March, who sources say was only interested in finding ways to slash the budget. The suddenness and severity of today's layoffs were unexpected, however, and called into question what the future of G4 will be. I think I know what the future of G4 is going to be. It's done.
Yeah.
It's not coming back. The network just announced a recently slate of new content, including a satirical X-Play show called God of Work, a play on Sony's hit God of War series. No one's watching this stuff.
Nope.
Originally launched in 2002 by Comcast, G4 was the only outlet for gaming news, reviews, and discussions of the TV at the time. Its main shows were X-Play, hosted by Adam Slessor, Morgan Webb, and Attack of the Show, hosted by Olivia Munn and Kevin Pereira. Those shows were eventually canceled in 2012, and the network closed down a few years later as video game content migrated online. I'm telling you, I have a suspicion the whole reason this network came back was because the guy was trying to impress Olivia Munn, and then she dumped him.
She wasn't very impressed.
It's not. I don't know. I'm just something I heard online. I could be wrong on that, but
look, I knew that there was. I knew it was trouble as soon as they started doing the Amaranth stuff on there. I was like, oh God, this is so cringe. And then the Frosk thing happened, and I'm like, there is nobody in your fan base who's going to be following this.
Well, the Amaranth thing happened after the Frost thing.
Oh, did it? Yeah,
yes.
That's a weird pivot. That doesn't make a lot of sense. It seems like the exact opposite.
No,
the
they're complaining about you looking at her, and then they bring on a Twitch. I won't say the other word for what that type of Twitch user is called, but
yeah, an OnlyFans type of model or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Let's be blunt. I've heard Twitch called OnlyFans for I guess preteen boys that can't get on OnlyFans yet, so they watch the Twitch videos of some lovely woman from Eastern Europe dancing to Dance Dance Revolution, even though she doesn't actually have a copy of the game, right. Or something like that, or and it's just.
But yeah, so we talked about it back when it happened. Frosk did her whole meltdown, and the Wokosos on the show do the little clappy for her. Yay, you are so stunning and brave. And everybody who saw it was like, yeah, this is going to be the end of the show. This is the end of the channel. And here we are talking about it. They've just laid off a whole bunch of people. It doesn't sound like they're going to be able to continue running, so I don't know why anyone would be excited about it.
No,
but then you come to the next part of it.
Yeah,
where
in a stunning.
Go ahead.
I'll just go to it. In a stunning display of tone deafness, particular from someone whose own actions ostensibly played a significant role in getting here, G4 host Indiana Frost Black responded to the network's recently announced sweeping staff cuts by sharing a meme celebrating the fact that she herself did not face the chopping block. As per three sources familiar with the business who spoke to Kotaku, at least somewhere between 20 and 30 staff members. Okay. Though the details regarding the exact extent of these layoffs are currently unclear, those who were let go. Okay, I already read this. According to said sources, the network has been in rough financial shape for quite a time, with managers having been saddled with the honor of looking for any and all ways the network can reduce their costs, including letting go of staffs. Let me go back. There's a lot of repeat here. Okay. Talking to Twitter the day after these cuts were divulged to the public, Frost, whose infamous sexism and gaming rant will undoubtedly be cited as a major factor in the network's struggles, responded to the news by sharing a meme which featured a lizard with a crown, the deal with it glasses, a joint, and bold text reading, "I survived," superimposed over the image. "Let's say play some game, Joe," Frost added. Now, you just have a bunch of your coworkers laid off. Now is not the time to be gloating that you have not been fired.
And this is exactly the kind of thing I was talking about earlier in the show when we were talking about people like Brie Larson and whatnot that have absolutely zero charisma. Because anybody who looks at this situation, if they're not in the game community, if they don't have a dog in the hunt, whatever, they see this. What they do understand is what it's like to be let go from a job. And they understand what kind of an asshole you have to be to make a post like that. So any kudos she might have gotten for her, fema woke bullshit goes completely out the window because you are now just a fucking ass.
No. I'm telling you, she's not. Here's what happened.
There.
Yeah, probably a lot of things. I wanted to say that I think people in the chat were just saying that they missed Olivia Munn and the other one. I hate it when this happens on the stream. It's wonderful getting older. Olivia Munn and the chick who was host of X Play. Anyway, okay.
This is out of my wheelhouse.
Morgan Webb and Olivia Munn.
There we go.
Morgan Webb and Olivia Munn. Okay. They weren't there, and I think people were expecting if G4 is coming back, I'm going to get these hosts that I used to like. I don't even know if they were necessarily commenting on that because they wanted to see a I don't even know if it was even a sexual thing. They just missed the host, right? And then Frost goes on her tirade, and of course, Auditor Dread brings up a point. Frost complains about sexism in gaming, yet she's on a channel where Olivia Munn stacks a bunch of hot dogs in her mouth, like she knew what the channel was before she did. She learned how to deal with the criticism. I actually have the FHM issue with Morgan Webb in it. The For Him magazine.
Yeah.
Back in the glorious early 2000s, when men weren't shamed for liking women, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she did like a bikini spread in there. Frankly, what I thought at the time was something very harmless, but I know in today's culture it's now, it's, can't have any of that. And I think the problem is, though, this new G4 channel, let's be honest, it's sending out mixed signals, isn't it? Because you have Frost screaming at you one week, and then you have Amaranth playing around in a bubble bath of blue balls, okay? And it's like, what are you trying to say here?
Exactly.
I don't get it. It's almost like they'll yell at you, they'll yell at you for having the hots for the woman, but then they'll put the woman in front of you, and then they'll tase you. It's like an S&M thing or something.
Right.
Am I wrong? I mean, I don't get what's going on. I don't think there's an audience for that, and I don't think anyone's tuning into it anymore. I don't know that even if Frost hadn't done that rant, I still think the network wouldn't have survived, but I don't think that help matters.
True.
Okay. Any thoughts?
No, this is just one of those, we're sharing the news with you. And who saw this coming? Oh, that's right. We did.
I never liked G4, to be honest with you. Some of the jokes on X-Play were really bad. They kept just... I can't describe the humor. They had one guy doing a very bad Johnny Depp impersonation during a review of a game. Like Jack Sparrow. It was just... I don't know. Okay. So what everybody wants to know, what NBC giving up its 10 p.m. time slot could mean for television.
Yeah, I found this really interesting. I never would have thought of it this way until I read the article.
This is from a couple of weeks back. I missed this. NBC has begun considering a cut to its primetime programming. The television giant is reportedly discussing whether it will keep its coveted 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time slot. Basically, you know how, like, well, maybe you kids don't watch network television, but the idea was the three major networks would have an 8 o'clock time slot to 9, then 9 o'clock to 10, and then 10 to 11, and you would have a show. I remember back in the old days, on Thursdays, that was the NBC's big night. That's when they had Friends on. They had Seinfeld. They would probably stick a couple other shows in between. I think Mad About You might have been on that night. And then at 10 p.m. to 11 p.m., they would have ER, the big medical drama. Remember?
Yep.
And, 10 to 11 used to be a big night. But, of course, we're not in the 90s anymore. And I don't know how many people are actually still watching network television.
Now, for our listeners in the UK, this is that time slot you would call post Watershed, where it's a very different kind of viewing. We don't really have that different a viewership, but there is this concept that from, well, in Central Time Zone it's 9 to 10. For Boomer who lives in the future, it's 10 to 11. It is still, stuff that they don't expect kids would be watching. So not that it's any less, it's the stuff kids would probably find boring and not interested in. It's for the adult audience. And sometimes it has a little bit stronger subject matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes, you can get away with more. Like you can see Sipowitz's butt on NYPD Blue.
Yes. Yes.
That's what you want to see, right?
Back in the 90s, we did start to get, side boob and butts on TV, which was big.
On TV,
yes. Yeah.
I haven't had cable since like 2016. Yes, I know. Amen, Agent Boomer. G4. He's necessary. That is. Well, like I said, it's a thing of the past. So is apparently the 10 p.m. time slot. If NBC chooses to do this, that hour would be giving over to local TV stations. So what does that mean? They get to do their news an hour earlier, like on the Fox affiliates?
I guess they're gonna jolly well have to.
And then what do they put on at 11?
But
honestly, I know what they put on 11. They put a rerun of the King of Queens or something.
Well, that does seem to be the implication, right? It's like the mainline shows have stopped, and then anything after that is syndication, or back in the day it would have been like infomercials and stuff like that.
The matter is apparently being mulled over at an executive level and hasn't been brought to the NBC affiliates board. It's reported that these discussions are preliminary. I think the 10 p.m. slot's going away.
Yeah.
NBC is one of the old guards of television networks. Its programming comprises daytime soap operas, procedural shows like Law and Order News, and primetime sports. It's famous for its broadcast of the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Did we have one of those this past year? Or was that canceled because of the coup?
I have no idea.
The Times Square ball drop on New Year's and the very first Super Bowl. Like most other television networks, NBC is continuing to focus its energies on more streaming than on its broadcast news recently. The NBC platform Peacock is one of the biggest streaming platforms available to maintain quality programming. I'm curious, did NBC get the Olympics? They don't have football anymore, do they? I think that goes to CBS.
You're asking me about sports ball? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I think I'm pretty certain. No, I know CBS had the football because that's what killed CSI Cyber, which was about the CSI team that went after cyber criminals. You didn't watch that, did you?
No, I did not.
Had James Vanderbeek on it. Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, Dawson's Creek. I know him. Yeah.
Okay, well there he was on CSI Cyber. And so was Patricia Arquette. She led the team and stuff. But anyway. NBC is experiencing a lot of changes, and trimming broadcast services is going on every Days of Our Lives. One of the longest running daytime soap operas and broadcasting every day since 1965 recently finished its television run to move exclusively to Peacock. So if you want to watch Days of Our Lives, you better subscribe to Peacock. In an experiment similar to cutting NBC's 10 p.m. slot, the chairman of NBC Universal Television Streaming, Mike Lazarus cut NBC's programming from 1:30 to 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and gave it over to NBC's affiliate stations. So that means from 1:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. that time period is up for grabs. What would be on at 1:30 a.m. anyway? Is that like the late show?
Well, I mean,
it's like the late show.
I was just gonna say we're talking about the Late Show. We're talking about all those chat shows that they have always had that nobody watches anymore.
Yeah. Oh no.
Like Jimmy Fallon and all of that kind of stuff.
This Fallon NBC. I know Colbert is CBS. I'm trying to think. And then there's that other guy. There's some. I think the Scottish guy's all right.
Oh yeah. The guy that used to be on Drew Carey, right?
Yeah, I think he's all right. I think he's. But yeah, most of them are awful. The guy was on the Man Show. Hate him. That's Jimmy Fallon. That's right. There's Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Kimmel. I like one guy reviewing Jimmy Kimmel. He doesn't think Jimmy Kimmel's that bright. I don't know if Jimmy Fallon's that bright anyway. I don't know. I'm tired. I got to tell you, network TV. Does anyone care about network TV anymore? Because
I have not watched network television for years. I really haven't.
Yeah, NBC got the Olympics and nobody watched. Yeah.
If there's a show that I watch, it's either on stream or on YouTube or somewhere out there on the high seas.
Scott Oliver. Is he terrible? I don't watch him. Maybe he is. I thought he was one of the better ones, but he could be just as bad as the rest. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I mean, NBC, they don't do Saturday Night Live, do they?
I don't know. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in even longer.
I don't even remember. It's weird. I've been in this weird flux where I don't watch cable or satellite. I haven't really done it for years, even though up until we didn't, my household didn't cut the cord until a few months ago. But I had stopped. I just went straight to streaming. I just found it a pain in the butt. The only thing I liked on cable was TCM, Turner Classic Movies. Everything else could go away. I just didn't care. I'll just stream it. It's easier.
Right.
And I have to tell you, the network television shows as of late, they're fairly close to terrible. Have you seen The Equalizer with Queen Latifah?
No.
Did you used to watch The Equalizer back in the day?
I've seen it, yeah.
Probably on occasion, yeah. They've gone full on. Just I don't know. In fact, I almost think back to what we were saying earlier on. They did the Equalizer movies with Denzel Washington. And I almost wondered if that was like a fan baiting thing. I bet all the Equalizer fans are going to scream at us for casting, instead of an Englishman, casting a black American man as that. And it's like, well, no, we still like Denzel Washington, so we'll give it a shot. And people like those movies. And then they were like, oh, it's Queen Latifah now. And then I think nobody cares. Nobody cares. Anyway, I'm trying to think. Are we done? That's the last article, isn't it? We will talk about Ezra Miller next week.
Yeah. There was some recent Vanity Fair article or something about him. More talk about him. We got to digest it before we can talk about it intelligently. So we'll see.
What you got going on? Actually, this week I'll say what I got going on this week. I got Soundtracks of Birdman Wednesday at 8:30 p.m.
Do we not have anything on Tuesday with?
Not this week, because we did a Culture Fortress last week. So, but we do have an upcoming Legion of Superheroes season 2 to discuss.
Right.
You caught any of that yet?
I haven't. No. I was afraid I was gonna have to binge it over the next 48 hours.
No. You have a week on it, so I would start now. It's. I'll say that about Legion of Superheroes. I do tend to get through those episodes pretty quickly. I'll say that.
They do.
I have fast, a soft. Yeah. I do have a soft spot for that show.
It's good.
I don't want to spoil it for you, so I'm not going to say anything. But there's some interesting changes they've done in season 2. I've watched a few episodes so far. It's almost like the Legion are being put in the position Superman was put in the first season. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. What else is going on, though? We also have Wednesday. So Wednesday 8:30, The Enforcer. I think Big Al will be joining us. Friday night, I will be on with you and hopefully a cavalcade of guests. Yep. Is that right?
We will at least be having Deleted Scenes, who is here in the chat with us. Ryan Roger Athe. So, in other words, some past guests that I've had. And I'm hoping for a couple others, but I'm not holding my breath. They've become successful and they've become too busy for us. But that's what I want to talk about is the YouTube journey and the community and building the community and how challenging it can be on this side of the YouTube stream. Just real, you know how my channel is, real relaxed, some drinks, chit chat. But I think it'll be fun. Which brings us to Saturday night over on Big Al Presents. We'll be watching an 80s classic, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Love me some Phoebe Cates.
Oh, I will be joining you guys for that. At least I will most likely be, yes.
Awesome. Yes. Looking forward to that. I'm assuming you've seen this movie.
I love the dialogue in that movie.
Hey, bud, let's party.
Oh, there's that. There's the other line like when...
Are you on dope?
Oh, everyone in that movie. My brother's gonna shit. My brother's gonna kill us. My brother's gonna kill us. My brother's gonna shit. Well, make up your mind, dude. Is he gonna shit or is he gonna kill us? First he's gonna shit, then he's gonna kill us.
Yeah, it's not a mutually exclusive thing, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just... Oh, that movie. Oh, Judge Reinhold in that, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I miss Judge Reinhold. I think he's an underrated actor. He should have been in more movies. Just him in Beverly Hills Cop as well and stuff like that. I guess he's the pseudo straight-laced guy. Apparently that was a Cameron Crowe. If you want to know the history behind Fast Times, Cameron Crowe had gone undercover.
Yep.
As a high school student to see what the high school students were talking about, and he did a thing on it for Rolling Stone magazine, and then he wrote a book on it as well, and that was the basis for the movie. Because if you watch the one movie about his life, you find out that his mother lied about his age, so he graduated high school way too early. Right? Wasn't that a thing in that movie? Almost Famous.
Yep.
So he was able to go back as a reporter into high school. Basically, I don't know if he was 18 or 19 at the time or 20, but he probably looked young enough to be a high school student. So he just kind of blended in with kids and just, I don't know, it's interesting.
Yep. But it's definitely one of those raunchy 80s comedies. Back when they were allowed to have R-rated comedies with boobies. That's good movie.
Okay. Link to Troy's show and we go together stream. Okay.
Yep.
Looking forward to it.
Yep.
Y'all have a good night. Hopefully I will be less foggy next week, but thank you guys for putting up with me tonight.
No problem. They get through a Friday night stream with me drunk, so why not?
I didn't have to do the whole, am I still Aged Boomer? Do you want me to be Aged Boomer?
I don't even know anymore, right?
I don't even know anymore. Maybe I'll just be,
Look, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. We got 10 likes tonight. That means 10 people came by and showed their support.
Yeah, let me look at that.
Those 10 people mean the world to me. Screw anyone else that didn't come by. Unless they come by later and hit the like button, then they're okay.
7 watching now, so everyone's hitting the hay.
Oh yeah, I don't blame you. It's a school night.
Yes, it is, and I have to get up for work in the morning. So y'all have a good night. We will be back next week with some fun tidbits, like we'll be talking more about Ezra Miller. We wish them well with their recovery.
Yeah. And speaking of fun tidbits, make sure you tune into Big Al's for Fast Times at Ridgemont High. There will be some tidbits there for sure.
Keep it out for deleted scenes. If you watch Watcher, that's funny. If you watch Watcher, let me know what you think of it. Yeah, that'll be funny. Watcher the movie?
Yes.
Or something? Okay, all right, y'all. You have a good night.
Take care.
Bye bye.